Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the top 5 games of 2019. My name is Killjoy. I am joined by the special guest, as always, Mr. donHaize. How's it going, good sir?
Very good, thank you. Mate, how's it going?
Yes, we've been discussing this for a while, and I was like, you know what, this would be kind of fun to do something like this, where we can kind of just look back on the year and pick out the games that we like the most. And before we get into it, so you guys listening have some kind of idea, it has to be a game that came out in 2019. There is going to be a slight exception to that rule, where it can be a game that came to a platform for the first time, which is only really going to affect me because one of my games is a port of an older game. But other than that, the games all have to come out this year on some form of platform or another. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to go back and forth. I'm going to start with donHaize. He's going to give me his number 5 game, tell me what it is, what it's about, and why it's on his list, basically. Then I'm going to do my number 5, and we're going to go back and forth like that. And so you guys know, I have no idea what he has on his list, and he has no idea what I have on my list. So this should be pretty interesting for both of us. And I think our lists are going to be pretty different.
I think there's going to be one game that's on there for both of us. I could be wrong.
Yeah, probably.
I'm sure there'll be one. But yeah, it would be interesting to see what your top 5 is compared to mine. Obviously, we played very different games. And before I actually get started on my top 5, I would just like to say this year's been absolutely amazing with like a huge amount of games coming out.
Yeah.
That are all like AA or AAA and above. Honestly, there's so many good games this year. It was hard to pick.
Yeah.
However, I would like to give a little bit of a shout out to a small number of games that didn't actually make my top 5.
You carry on.
But I would highly recommend them. Starting with Phoenix Point, that was a great game. Outer Worlds, Mortal Kombat 11, and Greedfall.
Nice.
All 4 of those games were really, really fun, enjoyable, great games, worth checking out. But they didn't quite make the cut, I'm afraid, this year.
Yeah, I can second Mortal Kombat 11. I've only played. I played the Switch version of it, which is the worst version, but I still had fun with it. I bought it just so I could play Terminator, and it was a pretty good game. It wasn't anywhere near my top 5, but I can definitely say it's a fun game and definitely worth playing. And I would like to shout out. I'm going to shout out 2 games that didn't come out this year, but I did play them. If you've never played Valkyria Chronicles, if you like turn-based games, 1 and 4, the ones I played, fucking incredible games. And I also played a game called Shadow Tactics: Blades of the Shogun, which is a game that I've been meaning to play for years. Finally played it this year, and it's also incredible. So if you've never played that, go buy that game. But right, well, without further ado, let's start things off. So what is your number 5 top game of 2019?
Okay, lastly, before we start, I'm just going to say how I've done this as well. So I actually scored them out of 60, as well as like what I thought was going to be my top 5, and it pretty much mirrored the same sort of thing. Yeah. But graphics and art style, which is like animations, visuals, aesthetics, the environment, effects, that kind of thing, weather systems. The second point was like gameplay, like the controls, level design, combat, animations, fluidity, and like the customization options were available. Yep. Narrative, which is a big one for me, like the story, the dialogue, the plot, how it ended, the impact you had during the story. Entertainment value was my 4th, which is like performance, features, enjoyment, expectations, and immersion into the game. 5th was audio, which is like voice acting, music, sound effects, and lip syncing, etc. And finally, boss fights, like the creativeness of the boss fights, the originality of it, enjoyment, fear factor, the acting, cinematics, cutscenes, that kind of thing. So that was just how I scored it all. So starting in at number 5 was Control.
Ooh.
So this is a very dark storyline. The whole game keeps you guessing like what is actually happening until the very end. Mysterious characters, interesting story, original, excellent gameplay, plot twists. There was fake endings in it. It was just one of those roller coasters of a journey. And it just, constantly keeping you guessing as to what the hell is actually going on. Like dark, eerie music. It was sensational game. Definitely deserves to be in this list.
It's from what I saw of it, because it's like a third-person action game, isn't it?
It is. It's over-the-shoulder third-person action-adventure video game. It's developed by Remedy Entertainment.
Alan Wake.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, you play as Jesse Faden, who basically comes to the Federal Bureau of Control, basically to try and find her long lost brother. They were separated when they were kids after a event. So that's literally all you know. It's literally like you're here looking for your brother. That's pretty much all you know. And you come to this thing. The building shifts. It's you basically find the guy who's like the director, the main guy, who basically, before you get to him, kills himself, like suicide. You have to pick up his weapon. His weapon turns out to be like a relic, like, or an object of power, which like binds with you. You then is connect with the boards, and then you have to try and find your. It's just a mind boggle. It's just like a mind fuck of a game.
Yeah.
Like you've got the hiss, which is like some weird entity thing that's like possessing humans and turning them into less than human things with powers, and you've got ability of like telekinesis to start with, and you start to build on that control, and you start to learn more powers as you progress through the game. Yeah, I mean, it's to say it's interesting would be an understatement. It really was like the whole time you were like immersed in the game. It was very captivating. I mean, if I just run through the list that I had, I mean, the graphics and art style, just for starters, very realistic graphics. It was very much civilian clothing, pleasant character models, great animations. The sort of character interactions were good. You've got a third-person view with great visuals. Obviously, the telekinesis thing. So when you pick items up, like for example, if you pick up like a filing cabinet, paper flies everywhere. It was just is very, very like visually pleasing. I will say it kind of lacks some of the truly high resolution visuals and effects that you probably see in other games on this list. And that's more a testament to how good they were rather than this being not as good. It was just, you know, it's kind of like this kind of far away third person view, so you couldn't really see many features of the character.
Yeah.
Outside of, you know, just her running around kind of thing. So it marked down a little bit on that, but ultimately the graphics and art style were really top notch.
Yeah.
Narrative, it was an original story shrouded in mystery, basically keeps you guessing until the very end. Really interesting characters, and connection to an entity in your head, basically, that may or may not be connected to you using your powers. It's a unique setting. Obviously, you're in a building that shifts and moves around, so as you kind of get to different parts of the game, the whole building like shifts around, and you end up unlocking new areas that way, by like clearing out the hiss, basically. I will say sometimes it felt like there's a lack of direction or kind of like unclear goals. So as you're walking around, you're just like, I don't really know what I'm doing. It wasn't like, here's a map of where you need to go. It was kind of like, here's a massive map with like 5 different levels. Good luck. Have fun. Whilst a lot of the game kind of did give you like, this is where you need to go, and kind of gave you a pinpoint, sometimes it just wasn't there, and you're like, I don't actually know where I'm going, and this map is bloody huge. So I'm just guessing. I'm kind of just following where the enemies are popping out and just hoping that's where I'm going. So again, it was kind of like, yeah, it did lack a little bit of direction. I kind of feel like in some cases, like even the creators didn't really know what the fuck they were doing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, they're just like, I got a great idea, I'm going to pop this in there and that and that. And then it's like, okay, so where am I going?
Yeah.
But honestly, in terms of like a game, it was just crazy. Like everything about the game was just mad. Lots of like interactions with other people like survivors, I guess. You got to learn a lot about their backstories and what was going on, so that was quite cool. There were a myriad of like reports to collect as well. So these are like, you kind of had to read them out loud. It wasn't like it was voice acted or anything, which I guess you could say is a slight negative. And you literally had to read so many reports, and it was kind of like just lore, I guess, more than anything else. You know, lore about what's happening, reports about, and you kind of, I found that I actually learned more by reading those than I did a lot of the game explained in some ways.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to read the reports, and the reports were quite lengthy, so it was like a lot of reading basically to try and understand ins and outs. I mean, the game kind of eventually got there anyway, but it was like you kind of get to second guess stuff, which is cool.
Yeah.
That being said, there was some really cool recordings that you could pick up from like Dr. Casper Darling. So he's like a scientist basically, and he's trying to make sense of the hiss and the board and the objects of power. And basically every time you come across like a TV or something, he'd be like doing a recording. It's like fully voice acted, fully like an actual almost cutscene or a cinematic, if you like. But there was loads of them dotted throughout. I think there was probably like 30 or 40 maybe throughout. So that was cool. I like that. That was deeply satisfying.
Are they the ones?
To find them and...
No, so are they the ones with the puppets?
Yeah, so that was part of them. So there was all sorts of... So Dr. Casper Darling was like a very specific part of that.
Yeah.
There was some other weird shit as well that was going on. That was like one of them. That was like it. So there was like... I think there was like 5 or 6 different like types of recordings. And they all had like a series, I guess, to a degree. You had to find and try and get... You didn't have to find them, but it was... You find them and it's like, oh, cool, a little cinematic or a cutscene. So yeah, again, it was just a nice little thing that they added, a little bit original. And yeah, I think that really sort of gave it a little bit of a higher score from my perspective on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so gameplay. There was a host of different abilities and skills that you can use to level up your character, to use on your adventure. Fluid movement, actions and combat was wicked. The ability to fly or hover using telekinesis to like move objects or throw people. Shields like force shields, weapon mods, attachments, large open levels, but I guess at some point were somewhat confusing or lacked direction. Controls were easy to use, like not overcomplicated, but there was a decent amount of abilities that you had to try and remember. So
yes, I saw that.
Animations were good. As they very visually pleasing in terms of like the shields, like the hiss shield kind of distorted the area around them, so it's pretty cool. I would say there was some character customization, but realistically there weren't any customer characterization. There were outfits, but there was only like 2 or 3 options. One of them at the end of the game once you completed it, and then one other plus a civilian clothing. So that was something I feel like they added in, but never actually really took advantage of, I guess. So yeah, that would have been better if they had some sort of customization or character, identification to make it a little bit more interesting in that regard.
Yeah.
So entertainment value. So this is a good one. So basically trying to solve the mystery of the hiss and the boards. Who they are, what they are, why do they come from, why are they even here, why do they possess people, who or what is the entity Jesse Faden's talking to, how does she have powers, and who is the entity, and where is her brother? The whole reason you even came to this place was to find your brother. Exciting to say the least. The game really keeps you guessing, unraveling bit by bit. There was a fake ending. I was just like, what? It literally threw me, because I put like a lot of hours into the game. And then you get to like what you think's an ending, and you're like, "Fuck off!" Like, shut up! Like the credits start rolling, and you're like, "Have they just ended it here?" And like, what the shit?
Nice.
And then they don't, and then it starts to fade back into like a more twisted reality, and you're like, "Oh my god!" Like at least it's like, am I playing like an outro, or am I like, is this actually still playing the game? I'm so confused. Like that was just the kind of level of like the mind fuck of this game. It pretty much perfectly sums up the game. It is just an epic adventure of just second guessing what the hell's happening, because it just, even to the very end, I'm like, is this actually the ending now? Or are you just pissing about? You're just trolling me at this point. I will say the boss fights were pretty epic as well. It is very eerie and horrifying, weird, creepy, intense, and very bloody immersive, I will say.
Yeah. I heard that the side bosses are more interesting than the actual story bosses. Is that true?
Some of them were, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if well, you pretty much have to find all of them anyway. There is one that I think is like probably the toughest boss that I fought, including the end boss. but that was kind of optional. You don't have to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see why people would think that. But yeah, it was good. It was I think Tomlinson, or whatever, I can't remember his name exactly, but yeah, that guy was the toughest fight. It was good though. It was like very intense, to say the least.
It's good that you've enjoyed that part of it though, because like it's interesting watching people's reactions to this game throughout this year, because it's really interesting. Some people really liked a lot of the side stuff. Some people really like the story. Some people weren't a fan of it. So it's cool to see that you seem to just enjoy the package as a whole. Yeah,
it is. It is. I think it's a love-hate. I think you either love this kind of series or you hate it. I'm not sure there's much of an in-between, really.
Yeah. It's like Marmite.
You kind of like getting mind-fucked and just, completely taking on a wild adventure, or you're just like, no, I want to know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
So I can see both sides of the coin here, where people are either a bit like Marmite, you either love it or hate it.
Yeah.
I think there's not much of an in-between in my eyes. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed being. I quite like those kind of mindfucks. I played Quantum Break.
Yeah.
This game is very much like Quantum Break. Obviously, I think the same
company in it.
Company that made it or developed it. And also, I think Alan Wake. So there was a lot of references to Alan Wake. Now, I've never played that game, but I get the feeling it's connected to this game.
It's set in the same universe.
Yeah, so I thought originally Quantum Break might be in some ways related, given the same developer, and it's kind of like that whole using powers.
Yeah.
But yeah, Alan Wake seems to be the one that's similar. So I've not played it, but after playing that game, it is on my list of things. When there's some sort of downtime in gaming, if that ever happens, I do want to sort of sit down and play, because if it's anything like this, I'm interested.
Yeah, I can see that. clearly a lot to say on it, actually. Like, I can understand that. Like, it's one of those games that I saw come out. I saw a lot of people play it, and I saw gameplay of it, but it never... I'll be honest, it didn't really pique my interest, but that's not to say I didn't enjoy watching other people play it. I just was like, alright, cool, yeah. And that was... It didn't really... wasn't something that grabbed me personally.
Yeah, I definitely think it's the kind of game you would want to watch someone play, just to watch their reaction almost more than anything else, because there are parts of things that jump out at you and you're like, fuck!
Yeah.
Did not see that coming, or it's just the whole area, and I think that kind of brings on to the audio, actually. So, with the audio, there's no, like, real music, per se. There's, like, a repeating sort of combat song when you're in it, or a combat tune when you're in it.
Yeah.
It's very just eerie background music. So... There's not really music. It's very much just, it fits with the nature of the game. So whereas, normally I would say, well, there's no music, so it's like, how do you score that high? But
yeah,
I think it just fitted with the whole dark, eerie side of the game. So I think that just kind of added the vibe of being a dark mystery. So for that reason, I was like, actually, do you know what? It kind of fits. I think if you added music, it kind of take away from what the game was trying to do. And so I was like, yeah, actually thinking about it, I think that was a good choice from their part, just to have that dark music or eerie soundtrack in the background, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough.
And yeah, the other collectible recordings as well. So that was probably the savior, I'd say, because that was really cool.
Yeah.
I really liked the recordings. It just added something else to the game. So again, another reason why it achieved a higher score. And then boss fights. So I scored this a 9. Very challenging and impactful boss fights. Basically, the enemies grow stronger with every battle. They can use powers too, telekinesis, shields, a range of different enemy types, possess human with abilities and less than human mutations. So it was quite good. Quite a good array of different boss fights. Some would avoid. You can't use certain powers against them because they can avoid it.
Yeah.
Or you have to be very precise if you want to hit them with a telekinesis skill, because they can avoid it basically. So I realized I didn't actually go through all the scores. Sorry. So graphics and art style, I scored an 8. Narrative 8. Narrative 9. Gameplay 8. Entertainment value 9. Audio 7, and then boss fights 9.
Yeah.
Giving it a total of 52. So really, really good game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Highly recommended if you want that kind of mind twister of a game. It's a long adventure as well. Like it was, I think I must have piled at least 50 hours into the game, so it's by no means short.
Yeah. Nice. That's cool.
So that's my number 5.
Yeah.
Any questions?
No, I mean the thing is, I've seen a lot about the game anyway throughout the year, and I find it really interesting. It's like I said, it was quite Marmite-y, where a lot of people were like, "Yes, it's really fun and interesting." A lot of people were like, "Yes, all right." It wasn't like it was. There weren't people hating on it per se, but there were some people that got into it and really enjoyed it. And other people were just like, "Nah, this ain't my thing." So that was kind of interesting seeing that, and also come from a studio like Remedy that isn't a massive studio, but the fact that this game was on a lot of people's radars, and even, you know, I think it picked up some awards at the Game Awards this year because it was definitely nominated for a lot. But yeah,
I think the biggest problem Control had was its chosen time to release.
Yeah,
it was around the time a lot of AAA games were all releasing. I think the game got overshadowed by the fact that there's so many other AAA games out there at the same time.
Yeah.
Which I think if they just released it earlier or just waited until after those AAA games had been released for a couple of weeks,
yeah,
I think it might have done better. But you know, that would be my opinion on its timing of release.
Yeah.
It just seemed a little bit questionable. Maybe they thought it was like, do you know what, fuck it, we can compete with these AAA games and we'll go with it anyway, or they just wanted to get it out there as quick as possible, I suppose.
Yeah.
Either way, fair play for trying and releasing it. I mean, it obviously did well, don't get me wrong, it's obviously done well, but I think its timing could have been slightly better.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate thing in anywhere towards summer onwards, is that everything just gets fucking rammed towards the end of the year, so
100%.
kind of difficult. Alright, okay, so my number 5, before I get into it, I don't necessarily have the same sort of scoring system as donHaize does. Mine were like how much enjoyment did I have playing these games, and everything else kind of affected it from then onwards. So I mean, I will rate it on gameplay, audio, and graphics. That'll probably be the only things I choose. But I'm going to start off with, and this is the only game on this list that is a port of an older game, and that is Saints Row 3, the complete package. It came out this year for Switch. Now, back when the original Saints Row 3 came out, which was I played it on Xbox 360, it was and still is one of my favourite open world games of all time. For anyone who's never played a Saints Row game, imagine GTA but like on steroids, and it's like batshit fucking crazy. And this game is just one of the this game is like fun in a nutshell for me, where it's like anything goes. Like the story escalates so fast to ridiculous levels, and for me, like, I can't play Grand Theft Auto anymore because it's got this too much like seriousness going on. Like Saints Row 3, Saints Row 4 are like, in my opinion, 2 of the best ever. But this came out this year, and I thought, you know what, I want to replay it. So I bought it, and I put like 40 hours into it over like 2 weeks. Like, I just fucking rinsed the shit out of it. It comes with all the DLC, all the extra guns, everything. And the reason why I like the game so much is it starts off very simple mission, like it's obviously an over the, cover shooter, as well as like a third-person shooter. And starts off like fairly, silly, but fairly standard. Like, and then as soon as you're onto like the next mission, you're like fucking flying on a plane. The plane blows up. As you're falling through the sky, you're shooting people out of the air. Then you land onto like another plane or the same plane or something, and you get a tank, and then you're falling through the sky on a tank and shooting people. Well, that might be later on, but basically it just ramps up like insane levels like really quickly. And the whole point of it is that you go to this new city and you've got to take the city over, and you've got these 3 different factions that are all different. And like all the characters are ridiculous. Like, you make your own character. I go with a very British voice, very like Landon kind of dude, and it just sounds hilarious. And you've got all these different people that are into different things. And throughout the game, you're spending time with these people. And there's like a bit where one of your dudes is like, "Hey, we need to do that thing we used to do." And he's like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, well, sing." So as you're like driving the car to this destination, this song comes on the radio, and you're having like this back and forth of singing, and like. Even the villains and stuff, like one of the villains is like a right old nerd who's obsessed with this like film character, and like he's like this hacker and stuff, and it's just batshit crazy. And honestly, like even open world games that are coming out now, like they don't hold like the same kind of fun this game does. Like, this game is like, all the side content in it is awesome. It's like, hey, you need to like earn some money, so it's like you got to go throw yourself in front of a car and get smashed around, and you just have this ridiculous ragdoll physics, and you're like hitting things and like flying all over the place and trying to get combos and multipliers. Or there's ones where you're on like little ATVs, like driving around trying to hit all this stuff and like hitting jumps and things. Some of the other ones are like you're in like a car with a flamethrower and you got to burn as many pedestrians as you can, or like you're in a tank and blowing shit up, and it's just bonkers, like absolute bonkers. I didn't think this was going to get onto my top 5 list this year, but there's well, now I think about it, the more I think about it, it's like I absolutely the port was decent enough. Like, the game still has a few issues technically, but the port was decent enough, and because I hadn't played it for I don't know how long it's been, probably like 6 years or something, maybe 5 years, I was like, yeah, I want to replay this, and I had an absolute blast with it, and I was like, this game's fucking awesome. Like, everything about it is just awesome, and like, as you level up and get more ridiculous like abilities and stuff, it just keeps building on it. It's like, oh yeah, you want a motorbike that can fly? Yeah, there you go. You want like a VTOL? Yeah, there you go. You know, like, you take over like different parts of the city, you get different safe houses, you can like just pop into the safe house and spawn like a tank or a car or like whatever, these ridiculous things. All the DLC was fun. Like, there's one where you're trying to film a movie with aliens and you end up like working along with this woman and you're just doing crazy shit and like that, and you end up like murdering the film director and stuff, and it's just like, it's just non-stop. Like, that's what's so good about it. It's just, it doesn't take itself seriously. It takes the piss out of like a lot of tropes and things, and it just makes like you feel like a badass, like all your partners feel like a badass. There's one point where you have to go to like this pimp's place, and he's like dressed up with like he's like literally just dressed up like in boxer shorts, and he's like pulling a chariot. He's like running down the chariot, and you're in the back, and you've got to like shoot these other people that are chasing after you and stuff. And like you know, you have to like, what some of his side missions are, you have to go and rescue all of his hoes and things, and like make sure they're all right. It's like it's no holds barred. It's just ridiculous, over the top, like story. And like stuff like that. One of the villains is a luchador wrestler. You have to like fight him in a ring at one point, and then you get a chainsaw and you start fucking murdering all these people, and like it's like everything I want in an open world game. Like, that's just, it starts off fairly normal, you know, like basic guns and stuff, but then you've got like a shark gun. You fire it at somebody and a shark comes out of the ground and like eats them, or like you get like a squid gun that like takes over people and mind controls them, so you can like mind control a bunch of people and they like attack stuff. And like in the middle of the game, like this gas falls on this island and it turns everyone to zombies. So in the middle of this like map, you've got like this zombie like wave thing you have to suddenly do, and yeah, it's just nuts. You're like, there's a battleship you have to take out the sky. There's like, yeah, there's just so much stuff I love about this game. Like, it's just, if you've never played or seen this game, it is just everything ramped up to 11. And then hopefully they're going to bring the 4th one over, because the 4th one is basically like the best superhero game I've ever played. It's amazing. But in terms of graphics, the game does look pretty dated, I'll be honest. It's nice enough, but it is looking old. It's very much from the Xbox 360 era of like things looking all right, but that definitely hasn't aged well. Audio-wise, I actually really like it. The gun noises, a lot of the car engines, everything in it sounds really good, and the soundtrack is completely like, it's all licensed music. So you have all these different radio stations, all this licensed music, and they're great. There's like so many good tracks in this. Like, there's like pop stuff and rock stuff and like classical music and whatever you want to do, and it's quite fun because you can stick the radio on while like in the middle of a gunfight, and there's like fucking classical music playing. It's just silly. And in terms of gameplay, though, I think it's one of the best. It definitely has that slightly, what's the word for it, like, it has a slight clunkiness to it, but not enough to get in the way of the fun. Like, it's a game that you can just pick up and play, and you've got a run button, and you've got like a you shoot button, and like die, you can dodge and stuff like that. It all kind of works, but it definitely has maybe a bit of a clunkiness you'd expect from a game from about sort of 5 years ago and whatnot. But yeah, I can't say enough good things about this game. Like, it's really, it's also, you can also play it co-op. Which I imagine is just ridiculous, because you can up certain guns later on, either they overheat, so they have infinite ammo but overheat, but you can unlock later on in the game, if you've got enough money, infinite ammo for like all of your types of weapons. And you got like pistols and shotguns and machine guns and assault rifles, and you can just stand there and like, you get like star ratings. So if you've got like maximum stars, you've got like tanks coming after you and all that. and you get the max ammo with the rocket launcher, and you're just fucking blowing up shit left, right, and center, and it's awesome. I think awesome is the best way to describe this game. I had just as much fun playing it this time around as I did originally, if not more so, because it was like, you know, being a little bit better at it this time around. But being able to play through all the DLC, getting all like everything, like all the extra guns, all the extra like content and stuff, and at no point in this game was I bored. At no point was I'm like, oh, I'm fucking bored of this game. Like, I didn't want to put it down. You know, I'll play it for like 4 hours straight, and then I'm like, oh, I better go and get on with other things in my day, you know, and then picking it back up again and stuff like that. So it is getting on a little bit, but the fact that I basically had as much fun. I mean, like I said, I put like 40 hours into it, like in 2 weeks, and it came out at a time when there wasn't a lot else out for me. So I actually had a good chunk of time to sit and play it, and obviously I did a video on it for the channel in terms of like what the port was like. But I loved it. I think it came out in May, so I absolutely fucking love this. And I would, anyone who's got a Switch or anyone you can probably get it super cheap on PC, and it's cheap as chips on like all the old consoles. If you happen to have a console this on, buy this game. It's amazing. But if you do have a Switch, this is like the best thing you're gonna get. Like, we don't have a Grand Theft Auto on a Nintendo system. Buy Saints Row free, and like I said, it comes with all the extra content. It is fucking awesome. So I'm just gonna say that it's like, just in terms of the only port on this list, it is one of the best things I've played all year. It's great.
It definitely sounds up your street. It's very you. I would say, just crazy, just does loads of different stuff and all at the same time. It's just sounds like the type of game you would enjoy.
I liked it originally because it completely broke all expectations for me.
Yeah.
And then to get to replay that, and obviously I'd forgotten about certain things, and some of the missions are just incredible. And like,
there's the nostalgia factor as well.
There is that. I mean, like, one of the missions, you go into like a cyberspace, and you spawn in as a toilet with a pistol, and he's like, what the fuck is going on? And he's like, no, don't worry, we'll sort that out. And then you end up like turning into like a mannequin dude at one point, or a inflatable dude, I can't remember. And I think at one point you turn into a tank, and then you get these crazy weapons. But later on in the game, you can unlock all that, and you can just use it walking around the map and stuff. And it's like, you can unlock the tank. It's like a pixeled tank, and you can just use that and stuff like that. And it's just like, there's at no point are they like, oh no, we want to lock that off from you. It's like, no, if you've got enough money and you've reached level 50, you can unlock so much stuff. And that to me is like what I want in an open world game. Like, I could boot this game up, not do much else, and just fly around shooting shit and blowing stuff up and like messing around in it for a good couple of hours and just having a good time. And like, in terms of that, it's just, yeah, it's right up my street. I love the fact that it doesn't take itself seriously. I think that's really kind of a bonus to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Nice.
So there we go. So that's my number 5 game of the year, and the only port on my list.
Awesome. So going to my number 4, probably no real surprises on this list. It's Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the new one.
Oh, cool.
I mean, what to say about this? It's absolutely... The only downside to this game is the fact that it was too short, and there was no real boss fights. That's the only downside I can think of this game. Everything else, it was just tens all round, really. So it's basically, as you know, it's a first-person shooter, developed by Infinity Ward, published by Activision, released in August this year. Graphics and art style, I mean, you can't knock a 10 off that. It's probably one of the most realistic video games I've ever seen.
Yeah.
To date. I mean, graphics-wise, they're absolutely stunning. Animations were pretty much spot on, as was the lip syncing. Environment was stunning. So you can go from like desert sandstorms to like raiding a house in the wind and rain with night vision goggles, and just literally going door to door. Oh, it's just honestly the immersion in this game is surreal. The new engine, honestly, is... I'm so glad they updated the engine, because it was getting to the point where all the Call of Duty games were the same thing over and over again, and I was kind of like at the point where I'm not going to buy another Call of Duty game because they're always just the same.
Yeah.
The story has always been the sort of thing that's kept me going back to them. And yeah, the story in this game doesn't disappoint, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Astonishing visuals. You know, you've got desert sandstorms that are just the way the characters actually interact with like said storm and is so good. Is honestly like literally going from like going back to the mansion where you're sort of raiding. You got one guy's got a crowbar, cutting the chain off the door. Like there's that visual and that good.
Yeah.
Graphics wise, it's easy 10. Gameplay wise, I mean, again, I've scored another 10 for this. Controls were like relatively simple, but plenty of actions to make use of. Level design was awesome. Clear direction of where you actually need to go and what you're aiming to do, what the goal was. Combat was as you'd expect from Call of Duty, beautiful. Like sniping enemies in the desert from like 10 clicks away, taking account for the wind, check. Night vision raids going from door to door, check. Insane graphics when recording. Reloading your gun and like crazy knife fights, yeah, it's got that too.
Nice.
Like, customization, granted there isn't really any customization in the story mode, but there's multiplayer for that. Fluid animations and movement, yeah, 1-0. Really, really solid gameplay. Can't really be faulted. So many, well, there's probably about 8 missions. So that was the sort of one downside to it. There wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Like it almost just needed more of the same. Whether they do a DLC, I don't know. But so the main story, it was really good, and it was probably about 20 hours worth of gameplay. But that for me, for a AAA game, is a little bit
underwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Also, there were. I'll go to boss fights in a bit. I think. So narrative. So dialogue was engaging and interesting. Characters were awesome. Both from like the good characters and the bad characters were kind of interesting. There's some plot twists, betrayal, prison breaks, invasions. Yeah, it was awesome. This game really had everything, just not enough of it. The story was immersive and interesting, just too short. That was a really good ending as well, actually. Yeah, I don't want to spoil. Well, I don't know if I should spoil anything, but ultimately, yeah, the way the game ends is a little bit heartbreaking at the end, but it's awesome. Pretty violent as well. Very violent game.
Yeah.
There is some pretty like, holy shit, they're allowed to do this in gaming. But yeah, really epic. Entertainment value is very entertaining. It's hard not to enjoy just a AAA game in its finest, really. There were a couple of issues on PC actually, where there was a number of almost like not lag spikes, but there was stuttering. I kind of looked on the forums because like when I was like playing the game, I was changing all the settings and everything, and I literally reverted to like playing everything in like less than 1080p just to try and see what the hell was going on. And it's like I think it's where the game was moved from like a console to a PC. It hadn't been like optimized correctly. So that was quite a big letdown, really. It was only really affected the cutscenes and the cinematics. But it was a big problem. Like it wasn't smooth at all. Like there'd just be bits where it just stopped. Sometimes I have to reload the cutscene because it was just unwatchable. So that was a real big disappointment in the game. Almost feels like it was just rushed from console to PC and not fully optimized. I don't know if there was a common factor in it, because it doesn't seem like everyone's had the same issue, but it's certainly not graphics from my side. I turned everything off and on and no luck. So that was disappointing. But other than that, cinematics were insane, as were the cutscenes. Yeah. Just had to watch them like 3 times to actually get the full story what's going on.
Nice.
So yeah, it was such a disappointing thing for like such a almost perfect game.
Yeah.
Audio, I mean, voice acting was solid. Great characters. Captain Price was an absolute boss in this series.
Nice to see they brought him back, actually.
It is great to see an old character make it actually gives you a bit of background as well as to how the team was formed and created, and Yeah, that's really. That's how it ended, basically.
Isn't this game? I assume. I've just had a little read through the story. I assume this game is technically set before Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the old one.
Yes,
because,
it is. It's
yeah,
a
okay.
It's a prequel to the original.
Alright, that makes more sense.
Yeah, Captain Price does his own mission.
Yeah.
Basically, kind of following terrorists around, trying to find out who stole gas, basically. So makes use of his contacts in Russia. So you go to Russia, you go to the desert lands, which is kind of like I'm not sure exactly where it is. I don't know if it's a made-up place.
Oh my god! I just read the name of it. Begins with a U. Urkistan.
Urkistan. Yeah, I don't know if that's an actual place, but in any case, it's a desert area, and that's probably where you spend probably the majority of the game. You go to London at one point in Piccadilly. That was a wicked mission. That was quite early on. You form like a team, and then you pretty much go on trying to find out who caused the terror attacks in London, but also who stole the gas and trying to get it back, basically. And then you realise the whole thing is connected. So it was, in terms of story-wise, it was actually really good and really well done. It was kind of like you go back and forth as well, so you play as some of the Urkistan military or militia. So it's like it kind of jumps between different people, so you get different perspectives of what's happening in the story. Which is quite cool. There's some really beastie bad guys as well, like some proper assholes. But yeah, I mean, lip syncing was spot on. Environment was awesome. Yeah, sound effects were great. From like blowing the shit out of everything with a couple of aircrafts. You actually get to pilot some aircraft. Wreck shit. Almost like a kill streak. To not actually fly it, but you gotta get to shoot shit. At boss fights, I really scored low, 6. The reason being, there weren't really any memorable boss fights. When you look at Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the original, or Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, it was all of the boss fights were insane. Like, it was almost like a part cinematic, part cutscene, part gameplay. Kind of like play something out, and then you've got to grab a knife, and then you've got to kind of throw the knife, and then you've got to stop someone jumping on top of you, and it was like very interactive, very immersive. In this, it really wasn't. It was like press left click, okay, press left click again, okay, and that was it. I was just like, I don't know. I feel like versus what I know they're capable of as a studio, and then what we got, it was just underwhelming, to say the least. I just feel like they could have done so much more with, the ability these guys have. Right? These guys are veterans now. They know how to do boss fights. They've done it so many times in the past, and yet it was just missing on this game. Which is a shame. It's the one thing it could have had that could have really brought it up the list. But for me, it didn't have it, so it didn't get the rating it could have had. So yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts on Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Top-notch game, really good, as you'd expect from a AAA studio and a AAA game. It ticked a lot of the right boxes. The 3 things I expected to have was insane graphics, which is what you want from Call of Duty Modern Warfare. After revamping your new engine, you kind of expected it to have top of the line, best graphics in-house, and it didn't disappoint in that regard. It probably was one of, if not I'd say top 2 or 3 graphics in this entire list, and in probably entire 2019 today, I'd say. Gameplay was spot on. Definitely scored a 10 there, because the gameplay was freaking awesome. There just wasn't enough of it.
You're like, no.
Yeah, exactly. It was cut short too much. Narrative was awesome. I loved the story. Again, it was just too short. Entertainment value 8, because it was entertaining, but there was bits that took away the value of the entertainment, like the bugs and the not the proper sort of transition from console to PC. Audio was pretty spot on. Can't really fault it, but again, I think there are things they could have done better. Some of the music was actually really good in this, and it kind of came on at the right points. But the boss fights was the big disappointment. There really wasn't any. So
Yeah.
That was
Did you play any of the multiplayer out of interest?
I did play some. There were so many games out at the same time though that I kind of didn't have time to really enjoy the multiplayer, because I was like, yeah, I could do multiplayer, but at the same time there's like other games I kind of want to play.
Yeah.
So for that, I did put like good 10-15 hours into the multiplayer. I enjoyed it, but for me, I don't know. I'm kind of over that multiplayer thing now. Call of Duty, as fun as it is. So yeah, as far as multiplayers go, like there's loads of customization. Like customization options actually are insane. So for every gun, you kind of unlock different parts. So there's like under barrels and under barrels alone. There's like 10 different options. Yeah. And then you've got like scopes, and there's like 10 to 15 different options. And then you've got like attachment to the gun. So like silencers, muzzle flash, like all sorts of different. Like another 10 options there, and then you've got handles, like 10 options. There was, I think, 6 different areas of the gun you can customize. Yeah. Each with like, I'd say probably between 5 and 10 options each. So for as far as like customization goes on just weapons alone, it is the biggest kind of multiplayer they've done to date, definitely. So I think from a multiplayer aspect, I should imagine it's probably one of their best to date games. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I had a lot of fun. Just like, okay, well, I want to have faster reload speed, so or like a bigger magazine size, or whatever you want to do. But there's just so many options you can do, and different customization things. So it's like you can have so many variants. Yeah, yeah. So you can have the same gun, but have like 100 different variations of said gun.
That's what you want.
So yeah, definitely.
All right.
So, yeah, that's my number 4.
Awesome. I haven't played it. I have seen bits of it, but I'm glad that a lot of people seem to have really enjoyed this one, so which is good.
It's actually scored quite low.
Yeah.
Ironically, it's only 3.3 of 5. A lot of people have given it 1 star or 5 stars, so I think it's more of a case of you love it or hate it kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
I suppose from their side though, I think you have to look at it as there's 2 ways you can look at it. One is take the game at face value. If this game was standalone, you'd be like, holy shit, what's this game come from? Like, it's absolutely insane. It's so good. Yeah. But then because of what you know that studio is capable of, because it's like a AAA studio, you kind of expect more. Sure. Which is why I think it's kind of had a lot of negativity. Yeah. I've looked at this as if I'd never played a Call of Duty series. I know there are definitely things on there that I would say, well, actually, based on it being a Call of Duty series, there is things you have to factor in. Yeah. But at face value, the game is actually insanely good. If you were just to see it as like a brand new game that from a studio no one heard of, 100% it'd be like, holy shit, this game's insane. But because you know that studio is capable of so much more, it's like, well, actually, yeah, I kind of get it. You kind of have to be a bit critical of them because you know they're capable of so much more. Yeah, that's the only problem with Call of Duty is it's definitely a series that could do with maybe a year off, a couple years. They won't do it, but I know it rotates between studios, but it's very much every year. You see some improvements, but the improvements are never ginormous. So yeah, I can understand that. Right. Okay. Number 4. Yeah. Okay. So this I have gone back and forth on this so much this game, but you know what? I think it deserves. I think the other games above it deserve to be above it. So my number 4 for 2019 is Borderlands 3. I think that's going to be a bit divisive and a bit of a shock for some people, especially was for myself. But like, I gotta take the game as the experience I had both inside the game and outside the game with this, because this is let's give some context to this. When Borderlands 2 came out, this was a series that I already loved from the first one. When Borderlands 2 came out, I was at uni and I basically got nothing done for weeks because I played the shit out of that game and I loved it. Great game. The third one came out and it just I just had issue after issue after issue. If I take that away from it, gameplay wise, it's the best the series has ever been. Like, it's funny, the gameplay is incredible, like the sound quality in this game is incredible, like music is incredible, but I cannot
justify putting this above the other games when the other games worked properly at launch, when they weren't surrounded in controversy. You know, and even with the most recent expansion for Borderlands 3, I still had issues with it. And like stuff like that is kind of tarred this entire experience for me, because this game should have been my number 1 or number 2 easily. Like this year, as soon as I knew Borderlands 3 was coming out, it should have been my 1 or 2. But it's my number 4. So let's just go into it, because let's ignore all the bad stuff for the minute. Let's just talk about the positives of this game. It's got some of the best gunplay I've ever had in a game, period. Like, there is so much they put into, like, the sound of the guns, the feedback on screen, the way that they feel, the fact that there are so many different variants and manufacturers really mix up why the gunplay. Like, Borderlands is all about the gunplay. That's the main thing, because you're just going to be shooting the entire time. And the fact that, you know, I might not like every type of gun, but there was always so much stuff I wanted to use. On top of that, you've got like the rarer guns, you've got the legendary guns that really change things up. Like, what I wanted from this game, there were 2 things I wanted from Borderlands 3 was gun manufacturers having bigger differences, which they did, and characters having multiple skills, activatable skills, and I got both those things. And that really, really was what I loved about this game, being able to go, okay, let's have a look at the manufacturers. What do I really like? Oh, I really like Jacob's sniper rifles. They're very hard-hitting. They don't do anything else. They just do a shit ton of damage. Or I'm like, oh, I really like the fact that Torg, you can stick grenades to people and then blow them up, and they do splash damage and they do more damage. Or like, oh, I can use like a Vladorf and add like a bipedal, so I'm super accurate. And things like that. Or like, you know, Hyperion having a shield on the front of the gun. So it really gave you choice, and that's like the best thing you could ever want was choice. On top of that, there weren't many guns that I ever saw that were the same. There was so much variance and variety in the guns, it was like, whoa. Like, you'd come across some that were similar, but they usually had like big enough differences where you're like, okay, this visually looks a bit different, or like, it sounds a bit different. There was always something going on there. And then as you get in later on to the game, when you find the rarer weapons and you find the legendaries, they go fucking bonkers with some of that stuff. So you had this crazy amount of guns. They all sounded great. The shotguns in particular sound incredible. Like the slide that they added into this game, I didn't think much of it. I was like, I'm not going to use this slide. Next thing I know, I'm sliding around. People are in cover. I'm sliding around, like blasting them. They're flying backwards. Like ultra cool moments. Like awesome. So that was like, you know, stuff like with the guns was fucking awesome. Loved it. And even to the point where in the expansion, they have a gun which makes a saxophone noise, which to me, like, as someone who's really into music, was like, oh my god, this is amazing. So I'm just stood there going, brr, 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 like, you know, shooting people with this saxophone gun, and I loved it. It's not the best gun in the game, but it's definitely one of my favorites. Like, I was like, this is fucking awesome. And even points where I had like the Ghostbusters gun, and I gave it to you because I was like, oh, I've not used it, and you were like, holy fuck, this thing's insane. And seeing all these different guns that, you know, a lot of the legendaries don't actually tell you what they do until you use them. You're like, well, it just says like one line of, you know, text and like a couple of extra bonuses, and then you use it and you're like, whoa, this is a bit nuts. And that's kind of like the charm to it. On top of that, you had the 4 characters. Now I was a bit like, not sure about them to start with, because I was like, well, they're reusing a lot of the older abilities from the older games. But turns out, like, actually it didn't matter too much because of the skill trees being better than I thought they were as well. I was like, nah, they don't seem like that interesting. But as the game goes on, your guns, you get anointed guns that can affect things. You've got the pickups, so the my god, what are they called? Relics that can affect things, and you've also got the mods that can affect things and add extra points, to the point where some abilities can be super overpowered if you put points into them. But the different abilities, now I've only played Zane and I've only played Flak, but like Zane's a lot of fun because you can just scrap grenades totally and just be like, I'm gonna use, you know, 2 of my abilities, and that's really fun. That's actually one of the best things about this game, in my opinion, being able to do that. And then with Flak, you've got a pet as well as your ability, and that also makes him quite a good choice for single player, because you've got something, you can get the pet to revive you, and you can do some fun things with the pet. And if you want to do critical hits and stuff, like Flak's really good for that. You can go invisible and just fucking do like 500% more damage. And like, I played him as a sniper in our playthrough, and I really, really had a great time with him. And then Zane, I played him on my solo one, and played him as like more of a movement kind of based guy, and that was really fun. So I think they really nailed the gunplay. They really nailed the characters in this. and that was just like fucking awesome. On top of that, the soundtrack is bloody incredible. My favourite track in the entire game, we only get it at one point, but things like when you're at Sanctuary, that music when the first time you hear it, it's like really good. But as the game goes on, certain things happen, and it kind of lends way more impact to the situation at hand, which is like awesome. The menu music is really good, even though I feel like it feels so out of place. Like, I love it. That's really, really good. A lot of the battle music on the different planets, because each planet you go to, very different feel. You've got one that's very sort of like Asian inspired, one that's very neon inspired, very jungle inspired, and you've got Pandora itself, which has got that kind of classic sort of deserty barrenness to it. And like there's like 4 or 5 composers in this game, and they did a fantastic job in just making all the music really pop and stand out and really suit the areas that they were in. On top of that, obviously the audio direction for the guns was incredible. The dialogue is really funny in this game. If you've seen any of our playthroughs, you were just constantly quoting shit from it. It's, you know, even like with Amara, you know, she's very stoic. She's this kind of character who's not necessarily like trying to be funny, but there were a couple of times where like even her lines, I was like, oh my god, that was completely unexpected. So like Flack and Zane for me were the funniest. I haven't heard anything of the Gunner, so I have no idea what she's like. But like, yeah, Amara is meant to be like, you know, quite serious in a lot of times, and you hear like some of these lines and I was like, oh my god, this is great. Like, writing wise, fantastic. Most of the characters in the game are really likable. You've got old characters, you've got new characters. I mean, there is Ava, who I didn't like at all, but you've got like stuff for Reese. Eh?
By design, I think so.
Yeah, by design, she is meant to be an annoying character. She's meant to be this whiny little girl who's kind of like figuring her way out in the world. But to balance that out, you have, you know, you've got Vaughn, who is, in my opinion, one of the best ones. He's got some of the best dialogue in the entire game. Reese I really liked. Lorelei I really liked. Obviously Tiny Tina, Mordecai, Brick. There was definitely not enough of them in the game, but they were still really good and very well written. Moxie, Tanis, you know, like most of the characters, Hammerlock, Wainwright, like most of the characters in this were great. I will say a lot of the old characters did feel a bit pushed to the side. Like Claptrap's hardly in it. Like, he doesn't have that much dialogue, which is weird. Like, when you think about 2 and 1, he's in it like a fair amount. Even Marcus didn't have that much lines in it, and it did feel like they were trying to, you know, there were certain characters that were really integral to the story. Even the villains. Now, I actually quite like the villains. You know, it's hard to combat with Handsome Jack and his story arc, and they keep using him and going back to him for a reason. But I actually didn't mind the Calypso twins. I like the fact that as the game goes on, they banter with each other a lot more and start to get more pissy with each other, and you kind of see that kind of power struggle a little bit. I did think it was going to be very different going into it, but I liked what they went with them. I thought it was a very interesting direction of them being streamers. And I think that they had some amazing lines. So, I mean, obviously I'm talking a shit ton of praise about this game. Like, I did really like playing this game. Like, our co-op playthrough, fantastic. Like, we had a great time. It was fun exploring this world, and like, obviously when you play with more people, there's more enemies, they're harder to kill. Like, you know, it wasn't necessarily the most challenging game because we kind of over-leveled quite hard. But like, some of my favourite moments were like some of the slaughter domes. I think they were like really fun because they were really challenging. Just like getting to certain planets, certain areas, you know, just like getting that chance to explore and kind of meeting these characters and stuff, and it's just really fun to do that. Overall, like, it is a like really solid game. Like, my things I didn't like about the game is maybe the story was a little bit weak. It focused on certain characters that I wasn't necessarily a fan of. But I mean, those are like, in terms of gameplay wise, those are the only like sort of minor things. I definitely think the gameplay is what makes this game so good. If you like how Borderlands is and plays, it's more of that, and it's fucking fantastic. A lot of my issues with the game were simply down to the fact that it wouldn't launch properly. I couldn't get into a new game on launch, so we had to figure out ways around that. My computer should have been technically good enough to run it smoothly on higher settings, but I have to run it on low and very low, and it's disappointing because the game at max settings, even though it's not the best looking game ever, it's got an art style that is very, very pretty, and it works really well in this world, and it's got that cell shaded look, and it's a kind of art style that will never get old. And I had to really like fuck around with things like that. I was hoping it was going to run, you know, even if it wasn't on max settings, I hope I'd be able to run it on medium and still get 60 frames out of it without it chugging at any point, but that wasn't the case. Then there was so many like audio glitches and graphical glitches and times where like just crazy things would happen when I was trying to heal my pet, then my pet would disappear because he died, and I couldn't open my menus, I couldn't change my gun. Sometimes I changed my gun and nothing would load up. A lot of the time you would load into a map and then I'd load in afterwards, and you'd run off down the, you'd already gone, and like I'm halfway through a conversation, and there was so many things with it that were just like, you know, they're all like minor things, but they really did kind of like add up, and it made me think, you know what, I think this game was released too early. I think it should have been delayed maybe to like, you know, it came out in September. I know that October, November are very busy months, but I mean, I would have preferred them to put it in the oven for a couple more months, so that, because at launch I wasn't the only one having problems. There was shit tons of problems with console. And not only that, the other thing that I very disliked about what they've done is every week it's a new hotfix. Rather than, you are getting proper patches and they are doing it, but as my brother did say to me, he was like, it kind of feels like people are a bit pissed off because it feels like it's almost like a bit of a beta test where, yeah, it's all complete and stuff, but they keep tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and changing and changing, and it's like, why are you doing all these things already? Like, it was, you know, it just, even though the game has been in development for a few years, it definitely felt that as it was released and stuff, it felt a little bit rushed. And I know that this game, like, in time is going to be like incredible. It's going to be an amazing state. Like, all the free content they've added already, the first expansion we played through was awesome, fucking hilarious, like really cool idea. And there's so much of this that I want to go back at, I want to play the other expansions. I want to play through this game more and again in the future. But I can't, with a good conscience, put it above the other games on this list, purely because those games ran perfectly, or they did think there weren't like bugs that I encountered constantly and things like that. So if you want my an overall take, is the gameplay of this game is fantastic. It's some of the best gunplay ever. It's some of the best like just movement based and like cool areas, shit tons of enemy designs, fun weapons, all that stuff. Audio wise, fantastic, phenomenal sound, both in music and in guns and dialogue and everything like that. And graphically, I think it's actually a really pretty game. It doesn't need to have a super realistic style, even though I'm playing it on like the lowest settings. I've seen it on max, I've seen it on other settings, I've played it on max settings on my computer. It runs at 20 frames, so I'm not going to play it on that. And it's a beautiful game, and it just works really well. Yes, sometimes it can feel a little bit barren. That's kind of by design, I feel. So overall, great game. Probably now is the time to buy it, now that they've, I think on launch this was not in a good state. I think now it is a lot better. And they're supporting the shit out of this game, so I know that in time it's going to be really, really good. But unfortunately, I bought it on launch. I can't ignore those issues. So that's why, gameplay-wise and as a game, this is definitely in my top 5. It is at number 4. But I cannot, in a good conscience, put it above that because of the amount of issues I had to go through. And I wasn't the only one. But for me personally, yeah, I think this is a perfect spot to put this on my list of number 4, of my 4th game of the year.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. I put it as my next one, ironically.
Yeah.
I knew it would be on there with both of us at some point, or I was pretty confident it would be.
Yeah.
I put it number 3. And a lot of that probably is the fact that I didn't have a lot of the issues you had.
Yeah.
I never had the launch bug, where it wouldn't launch into a game. I had no scope lag. I actually had one audio glitch, I think, the entire time we did a playthrough, and that was when we loaded in on a cyclone.
Yeah,
I remember this. For some reason, I was like, wait, why is my... so I could hear I think it was my gun was firing or wasn't, but it wasn't. I was just like, this is so weird, like it threw me. So I actually had to... I can't remember what we did. I think we just ran out of the zone and then came back again. It was fine. Or maybe I just teleported. I can't remember. I can't remember how we fixed it, but it was just a really weird bug.
I think you had to spawn the car again, because I'd had that bug quite a few times, and I was like, oh yeah, just get. It was either get out of the car and get in, or just respawn the car. I think is how you fix it.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So that was the only kind of issue I had with the game the entire time. The rest of it was just, I think the narrative and the boss fights were the things that let this game down for me personally. So graphics and art style, I cannot fault it. Honestly, I was playing on max settings. I loved it. I created this graphics art style for the simple fact of, whilst the graphics are really superb, the art style is what makes this game so unique.
Definitely.
And I can't, in my right conscience, say, actually, because it's got this unique art style and it's not realistic, it's going to have a lower setting. That's not the case here. This game is beautiful. If you look at how Borderlands 2 was, and then look at Borderlands 3, basically Borderlands 3 is just a cleaner version. Like, the UI is so much cleaner. Like, the health bars are so much more visible. Everything just looks...
Pops.
Yeah, it just looks nice. It's a really beautifully crafted world as well. Like, everything... It's just the whole world just looked amazing. Like, whether you're in woodland areas, which isn't really my favorite type of area, whether you're in like a desert area, it doesn't matter. The game just looks beautiful. From like even the jumping thing where you can like mantle over objects and buildings just made the game a little bit more interesting. The sliding was like that feature they added that you never knew you wanted.
Definitely. Yeah.
It was such a good addition. It's so traditional Borderlands art style, but it's just vastly improved visuals, clear UI, cleaner health bars, great looking weapons, beautiful character models, really well crafted worlds, clean animations. There's a wide variety of like visual effects depending on what type of weapons you've got. So you got guns like TDL where you throw them and they create like little bots, or start throwing weapons or like guns everywhere and all sorts. So like lasers, and it is honestly even from the COV guns where you overheat them and then a guy gets out a little spray can and like cools it off. I'm like shit.
Yeah.
It's just so cool. Like, it's really well. For graphics wise, it's really beautiful. I had to score a 10 there. There's no other way about it. It was just a good looking game for me. Gameplay wise, and I think this is why I scored this a 10, but I think if I had the same issues you had, it would have lost a lot of points.
Yeah.
But because I didn't have them, I scored it a 10 because for me the game was like smooth and it's beautiful for me.
Yeah.
It's a great use of controls, new mechanics like the slide feature. Level design was fun and interesting. Really large maps with a shitload of secrets and like to explore. You had echo logs, which were cool, just like little things to find. Loads of different chests and weapon caches to find. Combat was incredibly fun. Fluid movement and combat, largest amount of customization options. I think that makes the game unique in itself as how it's the best looter shooter far and above any other game out there. Destiny 2 is probably its closest competitor, and it is miles away from being as good as Borderlands 3 as far as looter shooter go. It's just the number of options, the number of weapons. There are literally, I think they boast over 1 billion different variations of weapon.
Yeah.
Obviously that was before the DLC. Now the DLC has come out and added a whole new different range of legendaries. Just so many different options. Even having the same legendary doesn't mean to say you've got the same legendary. There's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of different variations of the same legendary. Both scaled from level and also scaled from even when you're like maxed out at level 50, you've got the mayhem modes, you've got true vault hunter mode, which then further enhances like weapon drops, and then all the different types of variations you can get within that. So you can get like different gun holsters which increase or decrease the way in which you reload. The magazine size, you can get different mag sizes, so you can have one legendary which has 6 but does like a magazine of 6 but does 1,000 damage, or you can have a legendary exactly the same gun that has 12 mag size but does damage of 800. There's different fire. It's just there's so many different options within options, if you see what I mean. Like, that's one thing they nailed to a T, and that is probably the best part about the game, is the fact there's so many different loot options. I've literally played this game twice, and I'll probably do a third playthrough doing true Vault Hunter mode. It's just that the replay value is so high with this game, and there's not many games I play more than once.
Yeah.
I'd like to put that out there. There's very few games that I'll play once and I'll be like, yeah, I'm good. That was a brilliant game. Job done. This game, I'll say I've twice already, probably do a third. So we did a co-op playthrough with yourself. I did a solo playthrough with Zane, who's freaking hilarious, by the way. Everything he says is like gold.
Gold, yeah.
And I'll probably do him again, but also do like a legendary Bolt Hunter mode, which is just basically hard mode in a sense. And there's 4 characters to choose from. I mean, you know, I've only played 2 of them. Those I think would be quite fun. I don't think I'll do it again with another character. I think 2's plenty enough. Amara, because she's a siren, and you know, Borderlands 2 I was a siren, so kind of carried on. Zane just is comedy gold, and he looked really fun to play. But I mean, in terms of character customization, sorry, there's not even just the character models. It's like guns, trinkets, hats, costumes, weapon skins, room decorations. Like the amount of variation and customization you can do in this game is just absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
There's no way you can't score this a 10. If I had a higher number, I probably would have put that on there.
11.
yeah, exactly. It really deserves like praise for the gameplay. I'm gonna skip narrative. I'm gonna go to entertainment value and audio because both of those were a 10, and then I'll step to the negative parts of this game.
Yeah.
I think that'll be better to do it that way. So audio 10, again, very well voice acted throughout. Some of the best characters in gaming, like Tiny Tina, Timothy, aka Handsome Jack, Moxie, Claptrap, just to name a few. Although Claptrap was a bit of a letdown. Same thing you said. There's not much interaction with him this year with Claptrap, and I just felt like, well, you know, it could have been better. I also obviously had a different voice actor, and it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
I just feel like Claptrap now isn't as funny as he was. Whether that's just the lines the voice actor was given, or whether it's just the way that the other voice actor came off, I don't know. Hard to put my finger on it, but he just doesn't seem as funny as he was. I definitely in a future DLC want to see more Tiny Tina. Definitely some more Timothy. He was hilarious. And yeah, some of the other characters like Brick and Mordecai kind of need a little bit more limelight, I think. If we can get Dr. Zed back, that would be great.
Yeah.
Holding out for that one. Sound effects were brilliant. Like all the different guns had different effects, very impactful sounds. And the music really was second to none. I mean, 2 of them made my best tracks of all time. I mean, just incredible. Even with the so that was Sanctuary and Neon Arterial Upper City. With the DLC, there was another track called the Pentatonic Dragon, which is freaking amazing. It's actually at the end of Digby.
Oh, is it the saxophone like weird electronic thing?
Yeah.
That was good.
That was amazing. So that as well, worth checking those 3 tracks out if you haven't already. Sanctuary obviously was my number 1 because it's what a tune.
Yeah.
What a tune. And it fitted perfectly with a lot of the sort of darker stuff that happened in the story, and you kind of get to that in this like mellow tune that's like really, I don't know, it just
emotional.
It just fitted perfectly. It was an emotional track, yeah, definitely. Entertainment value, easy 10. I mean, yeah, what else more to say? It's a very entertaining game, very immersive, full of just pure enjoyment. In getting the next legendary weapon to fuck shit up and kill Maliwan guys. Yeah. Great.
Katagawa!
Yeah, definitely. Katagawa! There was, it's just one of those things where there was a lot of things that we picked up and like we kind of use now in all of our co-op gameplays because it's so funny. It's such a good game. Entertainment, easy 10. Just really good game. And it lacked the 2 next things that I'm going to bring up, which is narrative and boss fights. Which really let the game down for me. Narrative, unfortunately, I think this is where the game lacks, in my opinion. It's a cool story, a nice idea, but lacks the X factor here, and it's hard to put my finger on what that X factor actually is. I actually found the DLC story, Moxie's Heist of the Handsome Jackpot, more interesting than the original story. Perhaps for me, the whole idea of just going after some psychos, looting and shooting is all we need.
Yeah.
Fuck the story. Just give me more of that. Maybe just give me some kind of. I think the way they're gearing up, I'd like to find out more about the what do you call it? I never remember her name. Say again.
The Iridians. You mean that lady?
Yeah, find out more about the Iridians. Do a little bit more backstory on that. That would be interesting. I'd like to see how that transpired. Obviously, there's a Dark Destroyer, whatever her name is, who kind of defeated the Iridians. So it'd be cool if we have to try and hunt her. I think that would make for a better story than what we were given. Don't get me wrong, I do like the characters and the villains in Troy and Tyrene Calypso. They made for good villains, but I don't know what it was. I think maybe it was just the boss fights that let it down.
They were so easy for us.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even that. They were just lackluster.
Yeah.
I think boss fights has always been Borderlands' biggest issue.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with that.
And for me, it showed again here big time. So it scored 10s everywhere. Narrative, it's got a 7, and the boss fight, it got 6.
Yeah.
Because the narrative was just, yeah, okay, fair enough. I need more Tiny Tina in my life, so give me some more of that, and we can boost it up a little bit. And boss fights, yeah, that was just the best boss fight, I think. There was 2 good boss fights, actually, memorable ones. One was the Rampager, which is like it's basically an insignificant fucking vault monster, right? A protector. And it was like one of the best boss fights they had in the game. It was like wrecking the stage. It had that fear factor. Holy shit, this thing's jumping at me. Like, it was actually enjoyable to try and take that thing down. It had like so much health, and it was just, we were both like scrambling, trying to save each other. It was just fun. I was like really immersive. I really enjoyed that boss fight, but it was, in terms of the story, it was insignificant. And I'm like, just give me more of that.
Yeah.
Like, that was actually a really good boss fight. I think the best one there was Katagawa. Katagawa
was actually really fun. It was a cool idea.
It was like hallucinations. You had to try and figure out which one was which, and I'm like, Levi, I think it's the one at the top. And it's like, we'd shoot that one. It's like, shit, no, it's the one behind us. And then he'd like come in, and he'd come out with his sword, and he'd come out behind you. And that was actually the best boss fight they had in Borderlands 3. And it was, again, it was like just a B boss. But it was significant to the story. I'll give it that.
I will shout out, like, even though it's not the best boss fight, I did like the bit where you got respawn. You go into that room. Obviously, the music starts playing, like the fucking saxophone music starts playing, and you basically have like a big sort of fight with this ridiculous music playing, and then you have to fight Katagawa Ball. Even though Katagawa Ball wasn't that interesting, the lead up where you're fighting like the fucking robots and these dudes, that bit was really fun. Like, that was probably my favourite part of like the kind of boss fight stuff in the game.
Yeah, fair. That was a good fight. I didn't think it was as good as the Katagawa fight itself, but I agree. It was definitely good. I think that's just the thing. It's like you just need more fighting. Like the boss fights are like
yeah.
Like the most interesting part of that boss fight was the bit leading up to the boss fight.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, sure, okay. So I don't know. I just think the boss fights just need to be a little bit something else, something extra. The game didn't have. Even the final boss fight was just
final boss fight was really shit. I'll be honest.
It was so bad. Like, it was just climb up, jump up, shoot it in the head. Great. Yeah. Carry on, rinse, repeat. And it was just like avoid getting hit. Yay.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I just felt it was lackluster.
I mean, Borderlands 2's final boss fight's pretty shit as well.
It's the same thing, isn't it? Technically, you're fighting the same thing.
No, you're fighting the boss from the first game in 3. In the second one, you're fighting the warrior. But like,
oh yeah.
At the end of the day, like you said, the boss fights aren't a strong point of Borderlands 3. Like, you remember it because of the characters, like the really difficult sections where there's tons of enemies. Like I was saying, you know, when we did the slaughterhouses, it was some of the most fun I had in the entire game because it was really hard.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I mean, I say it deserves a spot in my top 5. I think 3 is right. I mean, it's in terms of gameplay, it's better than Control. It's better than Call of Duty Modern Warfare. It's just that good a game. Yeah. Unfortunately, it was let down by the narrative and the boss fights, in my opinion, which is why it is where it is in number 3. So that's my third.
And I mean, obviously, it's my number 4 because of. I agree with pretty much everything you said. Obviously, I had all the bug issues, and I couldn't even play the fucking game to start with. So, you know...
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, if I had the same thing, it would definitely be lower on my list. Yeah. But for me, I didn't have those issues, so I can't really reflect on it in that way because I didn't have the problems. For me, it was flawless. But I appreciate that might not necessarily be the case for everyone.
Yeah,
so,
and also let's also bear in mind we've still got at least another 3 expansions coming out, and now the first one we did was fucking awesome. If all the other 3 are really good, I may come back to this and be like, actually, you know, as a package overall, it would be higher on my list of like games. But as it stands,
this is what we do next year.
Yeah.
2020. If Borderlands 3, honestly, I mean, in terms of the game, like, how do you top that for a Borderlands game? It's that good. It just needs something extra. So in 2020, when all the other 3 DLCs potentially launch, it might be on the list next year, and it might be higher if it can sort out those things.
Yeah, definitely.
My guess would be the boss fights will still let it down.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. So
yeah.
Watch this space. Maybe 2020 is Borderlands 3 time to shine.
Yeah, well, that's it. We don't know what the next expansions are. Like, the first one was good. I'd probably give the first expansion about an 8 out of 10. Like, I really liked it. I don't think it's the best one they've done, but it had everything. It had like a lot of fun to it, and it was, you know, a fun thing. So fingers crossed the next 3 are at the same level or better than that. So, you know.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So
your number 3.
Yeah. So that was your number 3. So obviously my 4 was Borderlands 3. So my number 3 is a game that kind of came out of nowhere and I didn't expect, and it came out and then bam, it was out. And that was a game called Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. Now, the reason why this game spoke to me is I am a huge fan of platform games. I love platformers, but I specifically like the Donkey Kong Country series. That is a series I grew up with. 1 and 2 are really, 3's pretty shit, but 1 and 2 was really good. And then the modern sort of ones that were on the Wii and the Wii U, fantastic. This game is heavily inspired by Donkey Kong Country. And not only that, it's got my favourite video game composer in David Wise doing 10 songs on this game. And it's got Grant Kirkhope, who is another massively famous dude. And it's got these 2 guys who I'd never heard of. And all of them combined, this game, in my opinion, has the best soundtrack of 2019. There's about 50 tracks in the game. About 45 of them are amazing. Some of the others are not. The other 5, not so much. But I bought the soundtrack. I have not stopped listening to the soundtrack since I have bought it. I listen to it on a daily basis. So the game, it is a platform game where you play as Yooka and Laylee. Yooka is a big lizard, Laylee is a bat, and it is the whole premise of the game is that you can access the final level at any time, which is the Impossible Lair, and it is a really long level with no checkpoints, and it's brutally difficult. Now, you can keep doing it and attempt it as much as you want, but the whole point is every level you complete, you gain a bee, and a bee acts as 1 hit. Now, you can get 49 or 50 of these bees, so that you can get through the level much easier. You can take a few hits, and it helps you get through it. It's still brutally difficult, but every time you get an extra bee, that's 1 extra hit. And the whole point in the Impossible Lair, what makes it so interesting, is it's all about learning. It's teaching you, when you play through the game, when you play through the 20 or 30 stages or whatever it is, I can't remember, 20 stages I think, the game's constantly teaching you what new enemy types are, what like to expect, so that all of that kind of accumulates in the Impossible Lair right at the end. So that when you do it, you're like, I know what these enemies are like, I know how everything works, I know that these enemies do this, I can take these enemies out, this la 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 la. So the game's constantly teaching you how to do it. But what makes the game so good as well, not only has it got super tight controls, each level has a variant. So even though there's only 20 levels, it's actually technically 40, because you do it each level twice. But you might start off the level doing like a factory level, and then the next time you do it, it's flooded and it's become a water level. Or you do one where you're playing the level, there's no electricity, there's no power, everything's off. Then you play it again, everything's on, you take a different route through the level. And every level is like that. So there's always something that it drastically changes up how the level is. Sometimes you're running backwards through the level, sometimes you're going up through the level. Like whatever you do on the overworld affects affects the level you're doing. And on top of that, you've got these fantastic, like, you've got this amazing world map that's like full of puzzles and things like that. You have these incredible levels. You then have this incredible soundtrack over the top of it, and like, I can't say enough good things about the soundtrack. I mean, literally inspired me to write more video game music. It's like just everything you'd want from a platform games need incredible soundtracks. Like pretty much every famous platform game, like Mario and Sonic and Donkey Kong, you know, Rayman, Crash Bandicoot. These games live and die by having these amazing, because they're fast-paced games. You know, you can't just play through these games with no sound. It would just be boring as fuck. the music and the sound effects really make and break these games. And the fact that, you know, it's got my favourite composer, it's got these other guys that are writing incredible tracks. You know, there's some of the tracks are really emotional, some of them get you really pumped up. Like, it's insane how good the soundtrack is. Like, this game has, in my opinion, has way more, it's better than it has way more right to be. They announced it, it came out like 2 months after they announced it, and during that time I was just like, I need this game in my life. You know, this is a day one purchase, I bought it and I couldn't put it down. Like, I was like, this game's incredible. And on top of that, it also deals with difficulty in one of my favourite ways. So as you go through the game, you collect tonics. Now, some of them do really ridiculous things, like make the game look like a Game Boy game, which is no use to anyone, it's just a visual effect. But what's really cool is that as you collect these tonics, you can make the game harder for yourself, or you can make the game easier for yourself. There's no difficulty slider. Like, the levels themselves don't change in how hard or easy they are. It just is a case of, oh, if you equip this tonic, you can take an extra hit. Or if you equip this one, it gives you extra iframes when you get hit. Or this one makes you run faster, this one helps you find secrets. Or it might be the opposite, this one makes the level upside down, this one flips the screen so all your controls are mirrored. All this different stuff, and it is, like, in my opinion, it's the best way to handle difficulty, because the game itself, well, I didn't use them, not until I completed the game anyway, where it was like, I want to play through this game at the difficulty of each level is intended, so that I know that I am getting through the level on my own accord, I'm not using any help. Amazing. But then, once you've done that, you can go back and you can play through these levels, make them harder, make them easier, and I think that's such an amazing thing. I think more games should do this, where the game's built in a way that's, you know, they've got a difficulty curve that they expected, but then you as a player have the choice. It's all like your choice. Is the game a little bit too hard? Do you want to make it a little bit easier? You know, every time you do, if you make it harder, you gain more quills, which is your collectible that you use to buy things, or you make it easier and you get less of them. But it gives you that option to do it, and I love this. It's not the first game that's implemented this, but it does it in a way that's just amazing. And I really, any game that's like considered difficult or a game that's considered easy, I would love to see more of this implemented into a lot of video games, where you have toggles essentially. Like, do you want to turn off the HUD? Do you want to, like, you know, in this game, for example, you can use one that slows the entire level down, slows everything down. So it's like, okay, do you want to learn to play the level at a slower pace? One of them disables your attacks, for example, so you can only jump on things, you lose your other attacks. Just like, do you want to make it harder for yourself? And that, like, all of these things combined just made a game that came out of nowhere with, like, and are based on a style of video games that I absolutely adore. And it's like, boosh, like, and it's got probably my favorite soundtrack of the year. I'm like, wow, this is like, I mean, some of this music is in my top 100 now. That's how good it is. Like, it's not often that I play a game that's come out recently and I think, oh yeah, I'm gonna, you know, that's like that good. I mean, some of this stuff is in my top 10 tracks of all time. That's how fucking good the soundtrack is. And like, yeah, it's just, yeah, it's a game that I just think, you know, I'm glad it did well. It seems to have had an incredibly positive feedback to it, and I hope that they make a sequel, and I hope that they just expand on this game, because, man, like, it's just, you know, fucking incredible. There are some minor things I didn't like about it. Some of the hitboxes maybe in the game felt a little bit like, not sure about that. But these things are so minor, and I'm nitpicking at a game that actually plays incredibly. Like, gameplay-wise, if you like platformers, this is like the best one that came out this year, hands down. There is no game, no platformer that is this good. You know, well, actually, that's a lie. There is one other game, but other than that, like, this is, in terms of a third-party company making one, this game's on all platforms. This is like fucking incredible. It plays like a Donkey Kong game, which is, for me, is amazing. Visually, it's got a really nice cartoony art style. That means it will always look fairly good. But that's not to say it doesn't look good anyway. Like, you have like factory levels and like underwater levels and like jungle levels and like rope bridge levels, caves, power plants. You know, you've got all these very varied locations. One of the last levels, it's like a scrolling level, and you're on like a big like airship. That's really, really cool. The impossible lair takes mixes and matches and all that. And yeah, for me, this was the game that just came out of nowhere and was like, yeah, this is everything that I could want from a platform game in 2019. Like, it's insane. Like, if I was going to score, I mean, I would give this game like probably a 9 out of 10. Gameplay, definitely a 10 out of 10. Audio is like 50 out of 10. You know, like, that's how much I love the audio. Graphically, not necessarily the most highest fidelity of anything, but it suits the game. You know, and yeah, I just can't say enough good things about this game. This is the kind of game that I like seeing year to year from a smaller studio, where it comes out and you're just blown away by like, wow, I didn't realize I needed this in my life, or wow, like these guys really took this inspired formula, put their own spin on it, added in these features, you know, and just made this incredible package. And the game was like 20 quid or something when it came out, and like I'm like, fucking buy it at 20 quid. Like, they could have made this game 30 quid and I would have bought it, to be honest. Like, that's how much I love it. But 20 quid for this is an absolute bargain. It might be like 25. But yeah, like, if it wasn't for the other two games, this would have been my number one. Like, I wanted to make this my number one, but the other two games above it are just, like, fucking just as mind-blowing. This is really hard. But this game, like, this is why this game is over Borderlands as well. Because there weren't any bugs. I didn't encounter a single bug. The game was super well made. Even though Borderlands 3 soundtrack is incredible, this one just, I think, has more memorable tracks, and there wasn't controversy leading up to the game. You know, it came out, it released, like, you know, got shown off. 2 months later, it came out, and it was just incredible. And yeah, I recommend, if you love platform games, you have to buy this game. You have to play this game. Go and support these guys. They did a fucking phenomenal job, and yeah, that is my number 3 game of the year.
Nice. Alright, the big ones.
Yep.
The big ones, the top 2s. So, top 2 and top 1, for me, separated by a point.
I bet this was really hard, because it was hard for me.
This was really hard. Both games are insane, the ones that I've got left.
Yep.
Start number 2 then, Gears 5.
Oh, I didn't...
insane game. So good. So good. Graphics and art, I mean, graphics 10.
Yeah.
Easy fucking 10. I think this game might actually be the one that puts Call of Duty Modern Warfare out of the number 1 spot.
Yeah.
Simply because it's so well portrayed. It's a sci-fi, you know, space age graphics, insane lighting, like all the weather effects, like from raining, like falls on the armor and you can see the water droplets on the armor and the face, and then the face gets sort of wetter. It's so good. Like, everything is like, just looks absolutely insane as far as like visuals go. Obviously playing this in 4K Ultra HD, full graphics, everything was turned on that could be turned on, and honestly it just looked absolutely beautiful. High resolution details, the facial expressions, the lip syncing was almost perfect. The weapon skins and effects just looked awesome. The physics were incredible. Environments were just mind-boggling, like from icy snow maps to, you know, woodland areas and deserts with desert storms blowing and just like little desert tornadoes and things, like desert demons. It was absolutely insane. Like the effects it had on you as a bit when you're like riding around in your vehicle, on the actual character, just bits of dust flying at you, like fuck.
Yeah.
It's just so good. Yeah, there's so many different like built up areas. Easily achieves a 10 out of 10. And you know, clean animations. I'd say it's probably the most grappled game this year. Pippin, COD Modern Warfare, I would say, actually, in my opinion. Gameplay 9, very well scoring here. So controls were simple and effective, really clean with easy to navigate paths and good direction from the game to like your next objective.
Yeah.
Beautiful animations, very fluid movement. The only problem, and I think this is just Gears in general, and it's probably more my inability or my lack of playing them rather than the game just being clunky, but I felt like the game was a bit clunky at times.
Yeah.
So because there's no jump button, instead you've kind of got like a singular use button, which is like an action. So if you go up towards a hill or something, you're like, am I supposed to jump up that? I'm not actually sure because I can't jump. So you kind of just have to use the action button, and then it would do something random. You're like, what the fuck are you doing now?
Yeah.
You know, I just felt that was a little bit clunky, and that's why I gave it a 9. Because it's difficult. It just made life a little bit difficult at times. Like for example, if you're like trying to hide behind a thing, and then it goes and runs off somewhere, and like, what are you doing? Wait, what are you doing now? Like, it's like, all I want you to do is just stand behind this fucking thing and shoot the guy.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, it's really good, but it kind of adds a different dynamic to games that probably isn't utilized very much. But it does also have its own kind of issues within that. And it's just the fact that it's just my inability or my lack of playing Gears games. It's very Gears, like, you know, that's just how Gears has always been. So I don't think it needs to change so much, but maybe just add a jump button so it does things differently. Rather than trying to figure out if I'm supposed to jump over this or mantle this or not.
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, I mean that was like an unnecessary obstacle in my eyes.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I mean, combat was just perfectly balanced and brutal, just typical Gears brutality. Fucking awesome. Loved every second of the combat. Game had this perfect blend of like open world exploration and level design. So there was parts where you kind of get on your sledge or sleigh or whatever it was called, and basically you just go off and explore the world.
Yeah.
And it's open world. You can literally do whatever you want. There's loads of like mini objectives and side quests you can do, and yeah, you could just go and have an open world game, and then all of a sudden brings you back into like an actual level, like a pre-designed level that you just go around and just do what you do.
Yeah.
Go wreck shit. It was just I've never seen it before in any game where you've got a mix, like rather than just being this is an open world game or this is a level design game, it's like a blend. It's like a perfect blend, and I've never seen one before. I just want more of it. It was so good. The game was huge, like 40-50 hours I probably put into this.
Jesus.
Just in the story. Absolutely fantastic. Really, every mission was fun, exciting. You know, I'd spend like two hours literally just exploring the area and finding shit.
Yeah.
And then going back to the main quest, which took another hour, and I'm like, great, that's one area. Now move on to the next one. It's like, it was so fun. It was just, yeah, it was really good, really well designed game. It just it could have been a 10 without the funny man in my eyes. That was the only thing I had an issue with. But as I say, this is the first sort of Gears game I've properly played. But I do want to go back and play the others because it was so good.
Yeah.
Kind of reminiscent of Assassin's Creed actually in that regard, where Odyssey was so much better than all the others, but it was that good that I kind of want to go back and play the other ones.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen that often. It's a bit like, but it's good. I absolutely loved it. A bit like Control really, and Alan Wake. You know, it was that good a game that actually I want to check that out. See how good that is.
Nice.
Narrative wise, I mean 10, easy 10. One of the best stories I've actually had the pleasure of playing. It was dark, sinister, voices. You get to play different characters, and learn a bit more about their origins, learn more about the Locust, and of course learning more about Kate's past. Kate was the best character in this game for me, hands down. Her past and her struggles is a very emotional ride. Great character depth, amazing large vast areas to explore, character interaction, so every time you get on your sleigh you like end up talking to one another. So Kate was kind of like with Dell for the most of it, and you end up building like this you know, character depth between them where they start talking to each other and just talking about life and stuff, and it was just a really good it's just a great addition. Like, it's not something that you get too many times in gaming, like this whole interaction, just randomly exploring the area where it's just silence and just listen to a soundtrack. It was filled with like just comments and commentary from them. It was just really brilliant, a really deep story as well. And what a fucking ending. Like, what the fuck? It completely threw me. I did not there was just parts in here where you have to make impossible decisions. I just thoroughly enjoyed the series, honestly. Very, very nearly made the top. And yeah, it's just what an incredible series. Entertainment value. The game is very smooth, even on max settings. Did take a little while to get familiar with the controls, but very, I guess, intuitive once learned. But it was still a bit janky at times. Yeah, very high levels of enjoyment of the story. Combat side easily was a really strong score. 9, very immersive and emotional game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Audio 9, voice acting was amazing. You can really feel characters, Kate especially, but JD, Del, Marcus, and Jack, the little robot. Lip syncing was brilliant. Sound effects were on point, and the music was bang on. Yeah, hard to fault audio really, for the most part. Good old 9, and then boss fights 9 as well. So fantastic interactive boss fights, interesting choices, actually made an impact. So there was a single point where you had to choose one person or another, which kind of affected how the game ended, essentially. Like, you get 2 different endings depending on what you choose.
Yeah.
Like, that is awesome. Like, that kind of immersion of you actually have to make an impossible decision is fucking awesome. I love it. That's the kind of thing I love about gaming, because it's like, rather than just have a predefined ending, you have like a choice to upset the balance, or you can kind of do one thing, or you can do something else. You know, you get choice, and that's what makes gaming unique than films.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, you've got all these great cinematics. Why would you play a game when you can just watch a film, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then the whole thing of gaming is you can interact with it. You know, that's why people like gaming, because you can interact and you can make a decision that you can't do in the film. The film is predefined. It has a set start, set finish. With gaming, you can kind of, in some ways, some games allow you to kind of veer off the chosen path and do something a bit different.
Yeah.
That for me just makes a game that much better. And that's why it scored so highly on the boss fights, because it was so fucking good. The fact that you can make decisions, and yeah. I also like doing impossible choices, because it's like, I'm fucked either way.
Yeah.
I just want to play this out. It's like, oh, I don't know what to do. It's so cool. I love it. But the other boss fight was the one thing that kind of made the difference between this game and the other. That was the 1 point difference. But it was still 9, very strong. And yeah, certainly made the deciding factor between my top 2 choices. It was a fucking close one. Fantastic game. Highly recommend. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well done, Gears. Well done, Microsoft. You have fucking outdone yourself on that one.
I heard a lot of good things about this game, and visually, like you were saying, it's fucking insane. Like, but I've only ever played Gears of War 3. That's the only one I've ever played. I only ever did like the wave-based multiplayer stuff, so I've never actually really touched the games. But obviously, I know what they are. They're, you know. But yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about this game, so I may have to check this one out.
It's well deserved.
Yeah.
Well deserved. I am very, very close. It was that impossible choice. I had to make one decision, but it was second for me. But it was bloody close. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had an absolute blast playing this game.
Awesome. That's what you want in it. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It was the story I never expected. I didn't know what to expect, because I don't really play a lot of Gears games. But
yeah.
I was just absolutely bueno.
Mwah.
Awesome. Mwah.
Beautiful. All right. My number 2 is a game that I've only just fucking played, and it came, and I started playing it 2 weeks ago on my birthday, and it knocked off. You know, I've only just added it to the list, and it knocked off another game that would have been on this list, and that is Fire Emblem Three Houses. Now, this is the Fire Emblem series, for people that don't know, is a turn-based strategy game where you have characters that you have to use, and they level up, and it's all like kind of medieval-ish kind of things. And the reason why this game is so famous is because if you lose a character, they're dead forever. Obviously, you can save it before the level, turn it off, turn it back on, or whatever. But the whole point of this game is it's all about, you have a group of troops that you learn to bond with over the game, and you level them up, and you're with them the entire game. So every decision in this game feels meaningful. And this one was one that came out this year, and I wanted to get it. I just didn't get it at the time, and a friend of mine bought it for me for my birthday. And I sat down and started playing it, and I was immediately hooked. This game has fucking phenomenal writing. It has incredible characters. The gameplay is slightly altered from other Fire Emblem games where it's maybe a little bit easier, but that's only because they try not to waste your time as much. They try to get you into the combat, and then as you go through the game, that's when they start to make it a little bit more difficult. When you start unlocking extra abilities and things. So the way that Fire Emblem generally works is you have 3 main weapons. You have the weapon triangle, which is axes, swords, lance. So like swords are good against axes, axes are good against lances, lances are good against swords. Less so at the beginning of this game. It's more just a case of you can use whatever you want. But the way it works is axes usually do the most damage. I think swords usually give you like double attacks when you've got high speed. And I can't remember what the thing with lances is. I think it's like higher critical. I might be. But you've also got magic, and you've also got bow weapons, and they, bow weapons are good against flying things, magic are good against like heavy armor, and there's other variants, but that's the general gist of a Fire Emblem game. Now they have changed this over a few of the games, but in this particular one, you can use kind of whatever, you can train up your dudes to whatever, but as the game goes on, you unlock, as they level up, they unlock abilities where they become like an axe slayer or a lance slayer, and they become better at fighting specifics, which is great. So this game comes along, and I'm playing it, and the thing that struck me, and has struck me the entire time I've been playing it, is just how well the story is written, just how well the voice actors have done the characters, and the fact that every character, you look at them and go, oh, it's like that kind of trope, it's this trope, it's like, oh, he's clearly this like dude, or she's this. But what makes it so good is that as you get to know the characters, you start to realise that this facade that they put on as like a particular personality, there's always these deep-rooted like backstories. Like some of them come from like noble houses, some of them come from the Empire, some of them come from these other like places, some of them are from like some of the outer like lying countries and things. And you start to realise that none of the people you've met, like your initial impressions are all wrong of every single character. And what makes it even better is this game has 3 paths you can take, hence the 3 houses. You get to basically play as a professor because you're the one training them up and taking them on missions. And you get to pick which of the houses you want. Now each house is from a different part of the country, so you then get to learn about these characters. Now I've only picked one particular route. I picked like the route with the nobles, and I was like, yeah, we'll go with like the king and all this, like this prince and all this sort of stuff. And as you're learning the characters, you realise like there's a reason why this character hates this person, and like you get that backstory throughout the game. You realise that the prince is actually like, even though he comes across like really calm and all that, he's actually like super vengeful. He wants revenge on these people that murdered his parents. And the game is basically split into 2 halves. You have the studying time, and then you have the war section of the game. So like the first chapter is like learning about the characters and finding out there's some weird stuff going on. And then you get knocked out for 5 years, and you come back and there's a war going on, and everyone's like grown up, and you're learning more about them, and it's just like the fact that they've done this. And I've only played 1 route. There's technically 4 routes in the game. I've played 1 route, and I'm getting to see it from this perspective. And what makes the game so interesting is if you want to know about everyone's, like all the characters, you can play the other paths, and you get a very different perspective on the game. But all those characters are just as well written. And like this game just took me by surprise, like how good the voice acting was, how good the writing was. The gameplay is, it's still that kind of standard kind of Fire Emblem, but they've added extra things in it now that make you think about it. It's even more strategical. Like you can play it in case of like, all right, okay, I've got these dudes, take out all the enemies, fine. But if you really look at like, what weapons you're using, what magic you're using, you've got things like gambits that are like sort of area effect spells kind of thing that anyone can kind of use. You train them up, like, and you get so connected to these characters because you're spending the entire time training them up. Like, do you want this guy to be like a paladin? All right, well, I need to train him in riding, I need to train him in a lance, and I need to train him in heavy armor. And like you have to make your path there. So you're like, all right, I want him to become a lord, and then I want him to become a heavy armored knight, and then I want to become this, and I can finally get to the paladin. And that's what's so cool, is you get so much control over the characters, you're learning about them, you're going, okay, I want you to be a healer and a mage, I want you to be a healer but on horseback. Like, there's so many options and choice. And then you as a character yourself, because you're like the son of this famous mercenary, you get to train up, and you've got some weird like special blood or something, and you can wield this like incredible sword. But you can just choose to be like, I just want to use magic, or I want to be like a horseback like archer. But you get to choose, you get so much customization of what you want to make your characters, on top of learning about them and seeing these stories and stuff. And this game, like, it's just fucking incredible. Like, I've always liked Fire Emblem. I've always liked the other games, but this one is just insane. Like, the writing and story alone, like, you could turn this game into a film. The hardest thing about it would be because there's obviously 3 different stories, but if you were to pick one route, you could turn this in and it'd be, like, insane. But what makes it so much, like you were saying with, like, Gears with the choices, is like you started off with a choice that you don't really have much context with. You're like, oh, I've got to choose a set of people to train. Like, some might be better at magic, some might be better at swords, whatever. But you can recruit other people from the other houses throughout the game. But what makes it so good is now I want to go back and I want to play the other routes to learn about those characters and their backstories and, like, how, you know, like, are my initial impressions correct about these characters? Is this person really stuck up, or is there a reason for it? Like, one of my favourite characters in the entire game, Sylvain, comes across as a guy who's just, like, constantly trying to, like, flirt with ladies and, like, chase ladies, and, like, he's always like, you always catch him and he's just like, yeah, like, this, I'm hiding from this woman, like, we broke up, all this sort of stuff. And as you start to do conversations with him, you realise that the reason why he's like that is he's trying to push women away from him because he has a crest, and crests are like these magical, like, bloodlines that you have, and he knows that women only want to be with him because of his crest, and, like, basically they only want to marry him for, like, sort of money and power and that. So he puts on this whole facade of, like, chasing women and trying to flirt with all these women to push them away, because he doesn't want that. He's like, I want to be, like, you know, I want people to like me for who I am and not just because of this crest. Like, he's like, I really hate the fact that I've got it. Like, my brother's died because, like, he didn't have one and got disowned. And, like, I didn't know any of this. I was like, the fuck? Like, and as that was, like, happening, I was like, oh my god, are all the characters, if they've all got these crazy backstories? And, like, as I was going through the game, I was finding out, like, oh, this person seems quite, like, jolly or whatever, or quite ditzy. And you're like, wait, like, all this shit happened to you? It's like, it's insane. And, like, I literally, just in terms of stories, I think it's by far the best story I've played this year. Like, it's nuts. And yeah, gameplay wise, is if you like turn-based strategies, this is fucking awesome. It's really accessible. The gameplay is fantastic for turn-based games. It gets more complicated as the game goes on, but never to the point where it's overwhelming, which is great. And like I said, you get to design your characters how you want. Audio wise, really good music. Really good battle music. You can actually choose when you're doing side missions. You can kind of choose the music you want. You can unlock music. There's a point in the story that's quite a low note, and the music that's playing during that point is really nice. Well, it's really somber, but like every piece of music that you hear suits the situation that's going on. Oh dear. And in terms of graphics, it's not the most high fidelity thing ever, but they have a nice sort of style that works well for the game. I can imagine this game being on, this is on PC, on a bit of a higher system, this would look really, really nice, but it doesn't matter too much because the game is a turn-based game, and a lot of the time you're using like a bird's eye view of like a map when you're fighting and stuff. But yeah, the thing that really sold me this game was not only is the gameplay how I like Fire Emblem, it is the story. The fact that the story is so well written and there are so many twists and turns, and on top of that, you know, getting to know the characters of the game is just, it's so nice to see these characters have like what you imagine these tropes to be, like, oh, X person's like this, and to find out why they're like that, and to find out that they, you know, later on in the game they might have changed their opinions. Things, you know, it constantly throws off my expectations, and I think that always makes for a good story when you think you know what's happening but actually that's not what's happening at all, and it's something else. And the same with the characters, where you think you know them but you don't. And that alone in the last 2 weeks has put this game at my number 2, because I've just been blown away by how, I mean, I've put like 40-50 hours into it already, and I already want to go back and like play the other stories and find out more about them. And like, I cannot recommend this enough if you like turn-based strategies, or you like games that have incredible written stories. And I think a lot of people like would love this series to be on other systems, because it is a Nintendo exclusive, this series, but there aren't many turn-based games that I think have that kind of function of, you know, you've got this set amount of units and you have to stick, you see them level up and grow as characters throughout the game. And that permadeath thing, like, they're not in this sort of like RPG kind of turn-based style anyway. So this is absolutely a game series that I would recommend to people if they have the option to play it. I know it's only on Switch, but I cannot recommend this game enough if you love fantastic stories. So that is my number 2 game of the year.
Nice, good choice. Sounds pretty good. If it was on PC, I might actually. Sounds that good that I'd probably give it a go.
I honestly think you'd really like the tactical side of it. Like I could see you. I know that the art style's a little bit Japanese anime, but like the character designs and the stories and the acting and all that stuff. If it was on PC, I could see you enjoying this because the battles are hard, man. Like some of them are a bit easier, but you really have to figure out. You have to train people up and make sure everyone's. You can't necessarily always just use one unit. You need to be able to level them up, so it really makes you think, and that's what I like about it. It's like kind of similar to XCOM. Like obviously you don't, when you level one person up and they're great, and then everyone else is shit. If that one good person dies, you're kind of fucked. And it has that same thing where you're really looking at taking your time and figuring out how you want to cross the battlefield and all that stuff. So yeah.
Who gets the killing blow? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously everyone levels up. Every time you level up, you get more stats, you get bonuses, you get weapon proficiencies, all this sort of stuff. It's just phenomenal. And yes, I do wish that it was on other things, but at the same time, I'm like, I get it. It's one hell of a flagship series for Nintendo. So yeah, it's great. Yeah. It's fantastic. So yeah, that's my number 2.
Nice. All right, the big one.
I'm really interested in what this is. I've got no clue.
Okay. So this, my number 1 top spot is a third-person over-the-shoulder view game from Respawn Entertainment. It is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh, really?
Now this came as a surprise to me as well.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
This was not on my list of things that I was like particularly bothered about or interested in. I love Star Wars. I love the whole. We used to play Jedi Academy back in the day.
Yeah.
So I know it's a good series and a series I've played before. But it was kind of a skip the limelight. I know it kind of came out at the same sort of time as Gears and I think Modern Warfare, actually, I think it was, sorry. It came out at the same time.
Yeah.
So I kind of ended up playing other series, and Borderlands 3, of course.
Yeah.
So it kind of came out that kind of time where I was kind of doing other stuff. I only really finished the game like a week ago.
Yeah.
But my God, I did not expect how good a game they made. Like literally, it wasn't even on my list of games that I was even going to buy.
Yeah.
It completely skipped the limelight. But man, it's such a good game. So well done. I mean, Respawn Entertainment of the team behind Titanfall 2. I mean, I guess you should expect no less than basic near perfection. I mean, and that's what this game is, basically near perfection. It's fucking awesome. Like, just starting a graphics and art style, easy 10. It's unbelievable. Like the amount of detail that's on there. On 4K max settings, literally the hair moves about when he's walking and running. Like in the wind, you can see the hair flying. Oh, it's insane. Like, there's a character called Grius who's like, I'm not sure what kind of creature he is, but he's got like 4 arms, and you can literally see all of his hairs and stuff, like on his chin, and it's like just perfect clarity. Like the graphics are phenomenal. Literally perfect lip sync. I don't know what they used to do the lip syncing, but it was literally perfect. Animations were 10 out of 10. Visuals were just stunning. Loads of different worlds that you visit, all with different weather patterns. Armor and skins all affected by rain and lighting. It's just unbelievable. Really good graphics, and easily a 10 for me on the graphic side of things. Gameplay, man. Controls. I mean, how can so few buttons be so fucking have so many actions? It's so good. Like, it uses no more than like 10 different keys at most. Most of them is left click, right click, and then I think F and E and spacebar. That's literally all you need to use, and then obviously WSD keys and jump. That's literally it. But out of all of that, there's so many different things you can do, depending on how long you hold the right mouse button for, how long you hold the left mouse button. Are you using a combination of keys? Can you like do you're using dodging attacks, or dodging an F does it like a kick? and you learn abilities, and as you go progress through the game, you kind of earn XP, both from finding like backstory items, which give you a little bit of origin stories, but also just fighting enemies and learning what these enemies are, finding their weaknesses after you've beaten them. And then just using different controls and learning new abilities to open up new controls. And then as you get to certain stages of the game, it opens up even wider the choice of different abilities you have. Honestly, it's unbelievable. Like the timed attacks, you've got reflections or deflections, however you want to call them. So a stormtrooper shoots the blaster at you, you time it just right and you deflect the laser back at them. I mean, it's just pure satisfaction of just getting that timing oh so right. There's even like dodge, like later in the game you can learn like dodge counters. So not only can you like deflect attacks, but you can also, if you time a dodge perfectly, it kind of just does like a back and just like backs out of it. So you can like perfectly time a counter attack. The combat in this game is sheer perfection. So fucking good. There's a huge range of enemies and variants. There's a host of different combinations you can use. So there's no guns or like picking up different weapons. You literally just have a lightsaber. Now there are 3 options within the lightsaber. Granted, some of them you learn later on, but you've got your single wield lightsaber. Then you've got the lightsaber with like double-ended. And then you've got dual lightsabers, so it's just and the way you activate them, so you can literally be fighting one enemy, you have the single lightsaber, and then you literally change it to a double lightsaber, and then it does like this ability, and then you start like using like a combination of both, and then you can like literally, if you're parrying, you can create a double lightsaber. So you take the lightsaber apart and literally has 2. And you just like dual wield. It's just fucking epic.
Nice.
The amount of like combinations you can do, and it's just mwah, bueno. It is so incredibly satisfying. Coupled with all the abilities, the passives, and all the abilities you've got as well, like push, pull. So you can like push a load of enemies down, you can pull them towards you and stab them with your saber. Depending on how long you hold it, like depends on how much like focus it draws, but kind of changes up how powerful your pull or push ability is. Obviously learning these kind of unlocks different areas, so you kind of go to 3 different, well there's 5 different planets plus 1 kind of area, like arena you go to. And so, for example, you don't have the ability to pull or push at the start. So you do like one planet and you do like the tour of the planet, you do what you need to do on the planet, and then you go to a different planet. And then you learn the ability to push. And then when you go back to the planet, a load of the area has been opened up essentially for you, because you can like push objects away and start to create new paths. And then the same sort of thing happens when you can learn pull. And then when your droid BD1 can like hack Imperial equipment, it kind of opens up even more area. And then just as I thought that was like, fucking hell, that's loads of stuff. Like, this makes the planet huge.
You
learn the ability to swim underwater, and then fuck me, you got to know everything else. Like, so then you've got underwater, every stream, every lake and stuff, you can like swim, find chests. There's loads of customization options available. There's like, you can customize BD1, which is your little droid bot that comes with you, joins your quest. You've got Mantis, which is like the aircraft you travel on. You've got your own sort of armor and stuff you can customize. You've got your lightsaber you can customize. Not only customizing the color of your lightsaber, but also like what your lightsaber looks like. There's just so, I mean, obviously every time you find a chest, it unlocks something else that you can one of before. It's just so cool. It's absolutely incredible. And did I mention there's wall jumping? Wall jumping on a guy. That sounds very much like Titanfall to me. Yes, please. I mean, given it's obviously Titanfall 2, and the wall jumping in that game was probably one of the best, is the best wall jumping. They've basically just taken that design and added it to this game, which just makes the game even better. I mean, I don't know what else I can really say about this game. It's that fucking good. The narrative is a really good story, some great characters, plot twists, origin stories. It's emotional, but with the emotional bits and like the thrilling humor, the humor that's there is like portrayed mostly by Grius, who basically it kind of doesn't take away from the seriousness of the game.
Yeah,
it's the humor of the character itself, and kind of just makes jokes of lots of situations, which is it just kind of adds humor without kind of deflecting from the game and the seriousness of the game itself or the story, which is really well done from their side. Huge immersion and awesome features such as wall jumping, backstories, a long lost civilization, and the origins of the Force.
Yeah,
is pure enjoyment. Easily a 10.
Nice.
Entertainment value. I mean, yeah, using your lightsaber to light up dark areas. Hell yeah, just to find secrets and to loot. Yeah, take out unsuspecting like stormtroopers when you're like wall jumping or jumping off of things. You can learn to like double jump. Yeah, you can ride an AT-AT and start destroying bases with it. Yeah, it's just so cool, so cool. The priceless parry when you when someone's firing at you, you just aim it back at them and get them in the face. Boom.
Yeah, it's cool.
So cool. Yeah, I mean the dual wield thing is awesome as well. Like, just I don't even know. Yeah, it's just such a good game with like 5 different worlds to explore, and I literally had no expectations of this game, but yeah, with the boss fights as well. I mean, the boss fights were incredibly impactful.
Yeah.
This was the thing that really stood out to me is the boss fights, and this is why it's the only game on my list that scored a 10. All the boss fights were challenging, exciting. Obviously, having different force powers and how they wield lightsabers. Some of them use like double lightsabers, some of them use one, some of them use dual sabers. And you're just learning how to parry them, how to block them, how to, you know, when to use push and pull. You know, they would like block them as well, and they would do like crazy animations and shit, and do like backflips and stuff. And it was just, it's just. Honestly, it was so exhilarating, the boss fights. They were long, like they're pretty decent boss fights. It wasn't like over in 5 seconds. Like you had to think about how you're approaching each boss, and each boss was completely different, you know, in the style that they're using, you know, whether it's like a former Jedi or whether it's like an Inquisitor, they would kind of have different weapons. They use them in different ways. They use the Force in different ways. Some of them will pull you, so you'd have to try and block the pull, or they'll push you away, or some of them will like jump up and do like a repulse kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just fucking incredible. And even like throwing lightsabers, so you can throw your lightsaber if you want. If you've got like a single or a double. So if you've got a single, it throws it at them and then comes back. If you've got a dual wield a double lightsaber, you throw it and then it comes back and hits them on the way back as well.
Nice.
So just little things like that, man. It's just so cool. You can extend the reach using different abilities. You can like pull ropes towards you, jump off the rope, and then just like stab someone. It was just, there's so many different things you can do. And it was just a really impactful boss fights. Between the boss fights, there was cutscenes and cinematics, which just added the whole new different thing. So you kind of like do stage 1, get them down to a certain point, there'd be like a cutscene, and they kind of like change their style or something, and then you have to fight them again in like stage 2, and they'll do like different shit, and you have to like learn how to counter them that way. Yeah, I mean, the boss fights were by far just what made this game so good. And it just kind of like gave you something to aim for. Like, I really want to get to the next boss fight and like take on the next guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was literally the game that I didn't know I wanted, because I had no expectations for it. So yeah, for me, that was the game of the year, hands down. Close. Nice. It was close between that and Gears.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just what you can do with one weapon.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, you know, this is the first Star Wars game we've had in a while that people have considered to be good. Because you think about Battlefront and Battlefront 2, made by DICE and EA, and people shat all over those games. They're like, look, they're not great. And that's a shame because that's a series of games, the old ones especially, were really, really popular. So hopefully going forward we'll start to see more single player Star Wars games like this, because like for me personally, I really want a space flying one like we played, you know, fly around the X-Wings and TIE Fighters and stuff like that, like the old Rogue Squadron games, which I fucking love. But we haven't had something like that for a while. But this was the first game that seems to have come out that people have really enjoyed, which is good. You know, it's good to see that this is a Star Wars game that is a single player game. And I think it was only made in like 2 years. It was quite a short development time, but it's really cool to see that, you know, that people have enjoyed it and it's actually good.
It is absolutely incredible. Great game. Highly recommend it. I had an absolute blast playing it. Even the audio effects on the lightsaber just sounded so good.
Yeah.
When you have it buzzing above your ears, you're like trying to like wade through this pitch black area, and you have the lightsabers like illuminating the way in front of you. So cool. Like just little things like that. It's like, yeah, just little things like that make that game so good. And you know, you have to expect it from, you know, a studio as good as Respawn. Yeah. I mean, they've made some fucking good games. So yeah, I'm glad they had the rights to this game and they decided to create what they created.
Yeah, it sounds like they're making a sequel as well, so.
Good. I certainly hope so, because it's bloody good.
Yeah.
Really good. I believe it's before episode 3.
It's set before A New Hope. So it's after after Revenge of the Sith, but before A New Hope.
I think it's before the Clone Wars as well.
Yeah, and it's
after
also...
is it after the Clone Wars?
It's
after the Clone Wars, before New Hope.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Something like that. And it's also before Rogue One as well. So...
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's cool. I'm glad people are enjoying it, so it's good. It's good that you have...
And it's an original story as well.
Yeah. So...
It doesn't really... although it does have crossover between some stories, so...
Yeah.
I won't spoil it, but yeah, so there is a crossover between other characters, so you get to see characters that you don't expect to see.
Yeah, I know there is one character from one of the films in this, so
yeah.
But yeah, oh, that's really cool. That is a shock. I honestly did not think that was going to be your #1 game of the year.
Neither did I. Neither did I. Ironically, I only finished playing it a week ago, so
it's kind of like my Fire Emblem.
For me, yeah, no, definitely. It wasn't when we first announced we were doing this. I wasn't even on the list.
Yeah, same.
We were looking at a different list. But after playing it, I'm like, Jesus, I can't not put this in the list.
Yeah.
And you look at it and review it, and like, actually, this is actually that good. This is probably my top spot.
Yeah.
And I'm scoring it, and I'm like, actually, is my top spot. Like,
nice.
The graphics are as good as you can get it, really. I mean, I don't know how you can really improve on it. It's that good. Like, even it has things like physics that other games don't have, like hair movement. Like, what? Like, I think it's called pure hair.
Yeah.
You know, hair just rolls freely, and I think it's just like, it's so good. Even the close-ups, the graphics of that, like, so detailed, so high resolution. Yeah, and then it is the boss fights with the clincher.
Yeah.
I was like, well, Gears 5 have really good boss fights, but not to the fear factor level that this has. And I think that was that extra point goes to the fear factor, because you're like, oh shit! Get away from me with your saber!
Yeah.
Also, I would like to point out that the lightsabers look so fucking awesome in this. Like, the Inquisitor's lightsaber just looks absolutely sick. I am going to be doing a movie on this as well, so
nice.
Yeah, that's probably one of my next movies that's going to be on. Is going to be this, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be good. Awesome.
That's really cool.
Visually pleasing.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me finish it off then. So, my #1 game of the year. Most people know me, or most people when I talk on this channel know that I am a hardcore Mario Brothers fan. So there can only be one game that came out this year that is my #1, and that is Super Mario Maker 2. That game gave me everything that I wanted from a sequel. Now, growing up, I played a shit ton of platformers, specifically Mario Bros. 1, 2, and 3. Number 3 is my favourite platform game of all time. In my opinion, there has never been a platform game that handles as well as this game, has the level creation this game does. So the fact that Super Mario Maker 2 let me basically make Super Mario Bros. 3, like extended levels. That's kind of why the Construction Complete series started, was because they added slopes, which seems like such a fucking minor thing, but it allowed me to make this remixes and these inspired levels based on my favourite platform game of all time. And it wasn't just that, there was a ton of other things, like story mode and more multiplayer stuff, and like a shit ton of new doodads and tools and stuff to use. And for me, like, I loved the first one so much, and then this one came out, and I was like, this is everything I wanted in a sequel. And I have been having a blast with it. I played it for a good couple of months solid. Still playing it now. Not as much, but I'm still playing it. And when I think about all these games on this list, this is the game that I was most excited for this year that I knew about. This was the game that allowed me to essentially create the series of levels that I've been wanting to create since the original came out. When they first announced it and they were showing off all the new stuff, I was like, oh my god, we've got more, like, just more of everything. And that meant that I could properly build the series of levels I wanted to build and enjoy it. And on top of that, it allowed me to improve on the construction side of building levels. It really makes me think. I was testing them with people. I was like figuring out what makes a good level. That's why I started the Construction Complete series, because it meant that I was learning, being able to critique what makes a good level, what doesn't, learning about myself, how good am I at building a level, how does it feel like a natural like extension of those old games. Like, I really set myself these big tasks to just make a set amount of levels inspired by the original game, but like with their own twist, and like, can I make a level that feels like it's from an official game rather than just something that's just cobbled together and it's crap. And like, that has been like one of my favorite things all year, just constantly improving, constantly figuring out like how to improve and build and make levels that feel like they are official levels and things like that. And that is something that I've enjoyed immensely. And on top of that, this game you have the action music, you have the builder music, and one of my favourite pieces of music ever in Super Mario Bros. 3 was in this, and they've made a new piece of music for the builder section of it, and it is incredible. It's so fucking like relaxing, it's mind-blowing, it's catchy. If you know, Yooka-Laylee is my favourite soundtrack of the year, this is probably my second favourite soundtrack, because obviously some of the music returned from the first game, but most of the new stuff they added was fucking awesome. Like, I get that this is also a very specific type of game. Like, this is for people that primarily want to create constructions. This isn't the game for everyone. Like, you can just go online and play other people's levels, which is something that's completely reasonable to do, and it's a lot of fun. But for me, the reason why I liked it was it allowed me to extend a game that I already liked. It allowed me to basically be like, what if I was in charge of making these levels? What if I had all these tools at my disposal? You know, I'm not a big fan of Minecraft. I'm not a big fan of games that are all about that kind of construction. But I set myself my own target when this game came out. It was like, I want to make this series of levels, and I want to be able to make them feel like official levels. And because of that, and when the game came out and gave me all these tools, I have just had an absolute blast. It isn't the most groundbreaking thing ever to come out this year. It's not going to be the most visually, you know, it's all like 16-bit and 8-bit and some newer looking models, but you know, it's a shit ton of nostalgia. It's a lot of pieces of music I've heard many times with amazing remixes. It's the UI works really well, because when the game originally came out on the Wii U, which it was a perfect fit for because you had a stylus, you could like construct things. But this works as well. You've got the touchscreen controls, you've got the button controls, and out of all these games, like most of the time, I like a game that gives me the challenge, that gives me, you know, I like linear games to a degree where it tells me where to go and all that. But I made up all these own challenges that I've kind of followed through on, and there is no other kind of game like this, like that lets me essentially extend my childhood to now, and allows me to keep making you know, levels based on like one of my favorite games of all time, and to be able to get other people to play my levels, challenge other people, you know, but also at the same time get people to beta test my levels that I know and be like, hey, can you try this? Like, watch them do it. You know, get into that mentality of like how hard it must be to make a level. And admittedly, this is just a 2D platform game, but like, level creation has got to be like one of the hardest things. Like, how do you make something that feels fair? How do you do it? Like, there are certain rules that I stuck to. It's like, yeah, don't make any bottomless pits like they're off screen. Don't put shit tons of enemies on the screen. Don't, like, make this game, you know, don't do these sort of things. Like, set these rules, and I tried to stick to that, and I was like, how do I make a good difficulty curve? What makes a good difficulty curve? You know, all of these things that I've played, all these platformers over the years, and then to be able to, like, really invest my time into this game. And I mean, I've probably put I would like to say 60, 70 hours into it this year, of just focusing on, like, what makes a good level, how do I make it interesting, like, what's the right, you know, what you know, I'm used to playing these kind of games, so I've got a lot of, like, knowledge and all that, like, but how do I make it so that anyone can enjoy it of all skill levels? Like, that itself was something that I didn't expect myself to do, but also I'm glad that I challenged myself in that way. And I don't think that there will ever be another, regardless of whether they make another Mario Maker game, I don't think they'll ever, this one will ever have any other one will have the impact this one had on me as a person when it came to the idea of getting into that headspace of constructing and, like, figuring out how to make a good level. If I was in charge of making a platform game, I feel like I could make a fairly competent platform game. If I had to make a 3D platformer, probably not so much, because I've got no experience of that. But if someone said, I want you to make a 2D platform game, I'll be like, right, these are the things you definitely do not do. You know, I want it to be fair. I want it to be fun, fair, and, you know, a good bit of challenging, but I don't want it to be unfair. Like, I'm not like Dark Souls kind of on brutally difficult kind of thing. I want it to be anyone with all skill levels could pick up, and then, like, you know, fairly easy to start with, and then harder. But yeah, it's this game. I honestly don't think there was any other game that came out this year. This was the one I was most excited about. All these other games on this list are fantastic, and I'd recommend them. But this was the one where I'm like, this is the game I've spent the most time in this year. This is the game where I've challenged myself as a creator of content to be like, how can I get better at, you know, figuring out how this stuff works and understanding, getting into that headspace. And it's just a game that's just a lot of fun. It's colourful. I love colourful games. It's colourful. It plays on my nostalgia. Gameplay-wise, I love the gameplay loop. You build and you construct, and then you play the levels, or you can go online and play levels. And there are some incredible masterpieces out there by people from all over the world, which is awesome to see. Audio-wise, I love the audio design in this game. The first one had a great audio design. This one has great music, great sound effects. Like, it's fantastic. And graphics is kind of a weird one, because all these games still look and hold into my heart like they're fantastic 16-bit and 8-bit sprites, but it ain't pushing any boundaries, put it that way. But then again, it's based on the old Mario games. It's not meant to. You know, compared to something like Borderlands, you know, which is probably on this list, probably the best looking game I've picked out of all these in terms of just art style and stuff. This ain't competing with that, but it doesn't need to. It's a very simple, colourful game, and yeah, it's aimed at people of all ages, but this is just a game that I just fucking love, and I hopefully going into 2020, sorry, I will continue to keep playing it, and hopefully they'll add more doodads and content and things that I can use to, you know, further my improvement levels and to make more interesting constructions and whatnot. And this is a game I hope to be playing for many, many years, because there's a lot of things I still want to do with it. So even though this is the one game that doesn't necessarily have like a linear story or like a thing to follow, I set my own sort of goals, I set my own path, and I had a blast with it. And yeah, it's just a game that I think just kind of gels with me as a person who loves the Mario series and someone who loves platformers. Like, this is literally everything I could possibly want. If they make a Donkey Kong Country like maker, I mean, that'll probably overtake this, but this is literally, as of right now, like one of the greatest packages of all time. And the fact that there's endless content with people just making stuff online all the time is awesome. So for a game that costs 40 quid, you get a shit ton for your money. So yeah, this is my #1 game of the year, and yeah, I just love it. That's all I can say about it. It's just fantastic, and if you like building levels or just playing levels in that kind of style, it's for you. So yeah,
nice.
Yeah, before we wrap things up, I do want to give a shout out to Smash Bros. Ultimate. It didn't come out 2019, but the DLC that came out for it, and that technically the game I actually did play the most through 2019. I've probably put like now about 500 hours into that game since it was released in 2018, and if I kind of was, I did think like, do I include the DLC? But no, I think it it came out in 2018. It didn't come out in 2019. But that game is still like my favorite game of all time. But it didn't come out. But I have been playing a shit ton of it all year. But other than that, Super Mario Maker is definitely the one for me. So I think both these lists, like, this is a really good mix of things. It's nice to see. Like, we only had one game that crossed over. And it just goes to show, like you said at the beginning, there has been a shit ton of games this year of really good quality.
The scary thing is next year's going to be even tougher. Just looking at a couple of games that I think are likely to release, it's going to be a tough year to get a top 5. But just a couple of final thoughts. I'm curious what your kind of most anticipated games are for next year. And just to see if there's what you expect to be your sort of, I guess, top 5 next year is actually what happens when you review it next year. It will be interesting to see what your predictions actually are, what happens.
Sure, let me... I need to find out what's coming out, because... Oh, okay, I know 2. I can give you 2 games that I know that are definitely going to be games that I'm super looking forward to. Other than that, I don't... Oh, 3 games, okay. I found 3. I actually have to look it up, because I can't remember what's coming out. Do you want you go first while I'm figuring out what's coming out?
Yeah, no worries. So a couple of games that I think may release, but I'm not 100% sure. I think I'm almost certainly going to be in my top 5 if they do. But it's whether or not they get released. I'm a bit skeptical at the moment. Diablo 4. I mean, I fucking love Diablo. What a series! It's going back to its old gothic ways. And Hellblade 2. I mean, fucking yeah. Come on, Ninja Theory, you made such a good game with Hellblade. Hellblade 2 can only be good. My only concern is it's purchased by Microsoft as a studio.
Yeah.
Microsoft tend to like to rush things out. Now, my concern is if Microsoft kind of hurry up the production, it might not be as good as the original. If Ninja Theory are able to spend the time and dedicate what they need to create the game, and in that case, I would rather it wait until 2021 to be released rather than being forced out in 2020. I think that's going to be the main thing. Overwatch 2, obviously the story mode, I don't know, this is could be a grey area as to whether it's download, as in like downloadable content, and it's just an overhaul of Overwatch to create Overwatch 2.0, or whether it's actually a standalone game. But yeah, story mode for Overwatch, hell yeah, baby, sign me up. Another one that I think is going to be an interesting one, New World from Amazon Game Studios.
Yeah.
Got its own system in terms of its own graphics engine. So that could be interesting. Obviously, they've got a massive budget to play with, so that's set for May 2020. Now, my thing with MMORPGs is that they have is that a realistic release date? Obviously, they might have been sort of secretly building this game for a long time. We don't know how long they've been building it for.
Yeah.
But they generally have long life cycles. Like, for example, most games take 5 to 7 years of an MMORPG to create.
Yeah.
So if it releases quickly, how good is that going to be, and will it have a story? MMORPGs generally don't have the most in-depth. Well, they can do. It depends. A lot of them don't have in-depth stories. I think the two that probably do is World of Warcraft and ESO. But remember, they've been in development or even after release for many years. So what kind of state the story is out when it gets released, or whether it's just straight up just an MMORPG that you can have fun with, I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't really know enough about it. So my realistic list would be Cyberpunk 2077. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yep.
Gears Tactics. So this is basically an XCOM type game, but in the Gears universe. I mean, hell yeah. Give me that brutality. Watch Dogs Legion. Completely
forgot about this game.
Yeah, I mean, it took a little while to remember what it's called actually, but yes, I think that could be like really awesome. Based in London, whole hacking thing. That could be, potentially could be quite big.
Yeah.
And could make for some interesting story, and that kind of comes down to that whole being able to decide your own fate. I love that. Here's one from Larian Studios, Baldur's Gate. Now, I have no idea if this is even planned to be released next year, but if it is, and it's you know, A, it's Baldur's Gate, and B, it's Larian Studios. I mean, Divinity 2, if it's anything like Divinity Original Sin 2,
yeah,
then hell yeah.
Yeah.
Sign me the fuck up.
Is it co-op?
I would imagine so. I don't know. I don't really know enough about it. They
Right.
haven't really leaked much info at this stage.
Okie dokie.
It might not even get released next year.
Yeah.
In which case, it would either be Doom Eternal or Halo maybe,
Yeah.
and that would be my list. I would say Doom Eternal would probably make the list. Halo wouldn't. But again, I don't even know if Halo Infinite's going to be out on PC. I'd hope so, but
Yeah.
what's many hope?
Yeah. So I actually am now talking to you. I've figured out 5 games. 2 games I'm going to mention, but I don't think are out next year. That's why I'm not putting them on the list. Bayonetta 3. Bayonetta 2 is one of the best action games I've ever played in my life. I'm hoping the 3rd one comes out this year, but still haven't heard anything about it for a while. Also, Metroid Prime 4, would love that to come out this year. I don't think it. I think it'll be next year. But yeah, so those 2 games. My realistic choices are Watch Dogs Legion. You mentioned it. I was like, I remember really wanting to play that. That looked fucking awesome. Gears Tactics is one I want to play as well. Out of all the Gears of War games, like, I like the tactic-based stuff, so absolutely down for that. Doom Eternal, obviously, love the Doom 2016. That game is fucking phenomenal. This one looks even better, and I hope it is, and that is a very good chance of being my game of 2020. Oddworld Soulstorm, which is basically a brand new reimagination of Abe's Exodus, which is one of my favourite games of all time, and the gameplay I've seen of Soulstorm is looking pretty incredible. I think it's out this year, but absolutely 100% that game looks incredible, like super cinematic, and like I don't know what they've done with like the art style stuff. It looks incredible. And then lastly, No More Heroes 3, a series that I love, and that also has a very high chance of being my game in 2020, assuming it comes out, because they're saying it's coming out in 2020, but I could see that getting delayed. But that is a game. The first one is amazing, the second one is amazing. Travis Strikes Again, the spin-off, was pretty fun, but it's not the same. Like, these games are batshit crazy with some of the best boss fights I've ever had in an action game. So yeah, if I had to pick 5 games, it'd be Oddworld Soulstorm, No More Heroes 3, Doom Eternal, Gears Tactics, and Watch Dogs Legion. As I know at the moment, obviously I don't know what else is going to get announced.
No, of course. I say it's more a. I'm curious to see what you think now, and then when we review it a year, see if it's all similar or whether it's completely different.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's more of a Let's see what we think now and see what our predictions are at the end of the year versus the reality.
Yeah, I mean, if Nintendo announces something like out the blue, then it'll probably be that. But like as of right now, those are the games I'm most looking forward to, and they're fairly spread out as well, which is nice. It's not all at the once for me personally. So yeah. It's been a long video.
That's a lot, not big, long video.
Been a long video.
A lot of thoughts, big discussions.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah. You know, it's cool to see that we had such different stuff as well. You know, it goes to show like what we're doing a lot of the time. You know, I'm primarily playing a lot of console stuff. Most of the PC stuff I play with you now anyway. So I've got a bit of a mix, but primarily it's stuff I play on my Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right then. Thank you very much for listening, guys, to this fucking long video, but it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. It's really cool to do this sort of thing, and you know, if you like it, obviously hit like. If you want to see more content like this, then obviously hit subscribe. We're going to do some more like review playthroughs and things and stuff anyway in the future. Obviously Facebook, Twitter down there as well. And if you want to check out donHaize's channel, there will be a link down below if you want to see the movies he's been doing, some of the stuff he's talked about in this video. He's got playthroughs up on his channel if you want to watch those, as well as some other stuff and more dopey playthroughs of me and him and stuff. So plenty of content there if you want to watch it all in 4K, some nice high visual quality. So yeah, until next time, guys, it's going to be goodbye from me. It's going to be goodbye from this guy.
Peace. Thanks for watching, guys.